of a major government agency. So we go back decades, notwithstanding his youthful appearance. Go ahead, PS.
Thank you so much, Chair. This morning with us, my name is Arlene Williams. I'm Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development. And from the Central Ministry, we have Mr. Yannick Watson, who is Chief Technical Director. We also have...
Maybe you could just indicate the person as they're introduced, just raise their... Okay, thank you.
We have Ms. Leandra Woolry, who's Senior Technical Coordinator, and Mrs. Judith Rob Walters, who's the Principal Finance Director in the Central Ministry. You're very familiar with Mr. Everton Hunter, who is the CEO for the National Works Agency, and accompanying him are Mr. Varden Downer, Senior Director, Project Implementation, and Mr. Richard McCarge, Director of Major Projects. Also present today for the Port Authority of Jamaica are Professor Gordon Shirley, who is the President of the PAJ, and accompanying him is Mr. Keith Michel, who is Special Projects Advisor. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Hunter.
Thank you very much, Chairman. Morning again, Chairman, members. First of all, in terms of submissions, we have prepared a detailed report on the status of the SPARK program, and that was submitted. And we also have a PowerPoint presentation in case that is required.
I would suggest that
right.
you assume we have the detailed presentation,
right.
But I would suggest you use the PowerPoint to highlight the points.
So what I'm going to do, Chairman, with your kind permission, Mr. Downer will actually do the PowerPoint presentation. But what I'll do is just to establish context of the SPARK program. So we move it from there. Okay, so Chairman, members, it is well known that the road portfolio in Jamaica is fragmented, largely for historical reasons. The major road owners in the country, there is the National Works Agency, which is responsible for the main roads. And just for clarity, a main road is not necessarily a big road or a small road. It's not a well-traveled road. A main road, by definition in Jamaica, is a road that appears in what's called the main road schedule, which is a legal document. So if and when anyone asks for the NAA's involvement, our instinctive reaction would be first to peruse the main road schedule to establish whether or not that road is an NAA road. Interestingly,
is it that you are only responsible for those on the main road schedule?
We are only responsible for roads in the main road schedule. Now, interestingly, at last count, there is about 28,000 kilometers of roads in Jamaica. And the division I'm about to recite is largely accurate. The NAA is responsible for 5,000 kilometers of roads in Jamaica. The Ministry of Agriculture owns, I think, 1,200 kilometers. And the parish council, municipal corporations, own somewhere in about 18,000 kilometers of roads. And then there is a huge subset of roads which are dubbed orphan roads because they have no legislative owners, meaning they were built some years ago largely by developers within housing development and were never formally taken over by the respective municipal corporations. So one of the first things, based on the fragmentation in the ownership of roads and the variation in the standard of roads, the government took the decision to once and for all, make a concerted attempt to standardize the roads with respect to their construct, with respect to their maintenance schedule, and with respect to their ownership. And construct is important because a good portion of the roads that we have were never engineered in the beginning. There were tracks which were frequented, whether by horse and buggy or people walking, and they were subsequently paved over and became roads. Now, a road which is designed to engineering standards have characteristics such as line of sight. So, you can see things coming. It has things like the camber for, stormwater to run off and so on and so forth. And one road that I'm very familiar with is the Junction Road, which leads from St. Mary, when I was a child coming into Kingston. There's nothing about the Junction Road corridor that, vaguely resembles a design road. You can see it was a track that has been paved over. So one of the objectives of the government is to go in and to reconstruct the roads. So the SPARK program is the outcome of that deliberation. Now, the SPARK program is divided into two large components. There's the local roads and then the main road component. And the budget is $40 billion, half of which would go to local roads and the other half would go to main roads. Now, interestingly, Chairman, when the program was articulated as a road program with the division in financing, as I've indicated, again, because of experience and interest, we pointed out to government that doing roads without addressing the underlying water infrastructure is not necessarily the best thing to do. And that basically follows experience that we've had coming from the Mid-P program and subsequently to the South Coast program, where the government has now accepted that wherever there's going to be a major road project, it should not just be roads, but it should also incorporate all the required infrastructure to convert the corridor, not just into a space to move vehicle, but a corridor that enhances the land contiguous to the road surface and to give value to it. So the SPARK program, particularly on the main road component, will include, both components include water supply, and the main road component will also have water supply as well as fiber optic ducts for the fiber optic backbone infrastructure to be constructed. The impact of the water component, Chairman, members, is that the budget was increased from $40 billion to $45 billion. And I wish to make the point that including the water supply in the SPARK program, just like any other road program, adds complications to the project because it's relatively simple to widen a road. But to widen a road and to design and install a water supply and sewage in some instances makes the undertaking more expensive and it makes it more complex and difficult. However, it is precisely because of these additional services in the road infrastructure that adds value to your property. So property owners proximate to these road projects that have this infrastructure experience a significant capital gain, especially in terms of permissible densities for the use of these lands. So although it is painful, I confess, in some instances to undertake this construction, the fact is that there's a huge windfall in terms of the effect of incorporating this additional infrastructure. So the SPARK program has the first component. The roads were chosen based on community consultation. And in the community consultation, each constituency nominated 10 roads. This consultation was undertaken by the CDF, Constituency Development Fund, and were passed over to NWA. When these roads are sent over to the NWA, we consult with the Water Commission to determine which of these need new pipe and which don't. We then undertake detailed design for the new road, and then we issue work order through the ministry to the contractor for implementation. Importantly, Chairman and members, there is a budget for each constituency, and that budget is fixed. Now, at the time of the community consultation, when the 10 roads are identified, nobody knows at that point in time what's the cost for the 10 roads or the cost for any of the roads. So notwithstanding the fact that 10 roads were identified, the number of roads that can be undertaken based on the budget depends on the cost of each road. To the extent that the first road or the second road chosen are substantial in terms of their costs, is the extent to which limited funds remain from the budget to undertake the other roads. Suffice it to say that...
Just to make that clear, so you may very well have had 10 roads selected, but in reality, you could only get 3 or 4.
Absolutely.
If they are costly, and no estimate was done by road when the 10 were identified.
No, but those 10 were identified in a community consultation. We have undertaken detailed design for most of the roads, most of the 10 roads identified. But in terms of implementation, we can only implement as many roads as the budget will allow. In some instances, Chairman, members, MPs have said, well, why don't we just patch the roads and that will give us more roads? Again, that goes against the basic premise of the SPARK program. SPARK is not a patching program. It is a construction program to deliver roads to a particular standard that will give us a life of 10, 12, 15 years. So it's not a patching program. The contract for SPARK was internationally tendered, and the contractor selected. There are actually 4 contracts that constitute the SPARK program. One contractor won all 4, and that contractor is supported by a number of subcontractors, I think 20-something local subcontractors. To date, very quickly, the entirety of the local roads have been designed and issued to the contractor for construction, and we are about to start the main road component in another couple of weeks or so. In terms of budget, as I indicated, the program is a $45 billion program. It is our view that based on the needs of the water supply component, which we have seen on the ground as we go through the construction, there will be the need for additional funds, largely to finance the water supply component. And the final thing I will say, Chairman, again, because of interest, but mostly because of knowledge, there's an anecdotal reference to the fact that shortly after the road people make a road, the water supply people come and dig up the newly constructed road. And I've often said, I doubt whether the persons in the water industry get up in the morning, put on their clothes to go to work to say, which new road should I go and dig today? No, it doesn't work like that. Generally, what happens, Chairman, members, the water supply infrastructure that we have is very old. The pipes have been lying in sweet repose for 60, 70 years. Generally, they are asbestos cement pipes which experience cracks from earth tremors. During the construction process, the heavy equipment stresses
You
the pipe.
put a vibrating roller on top of a 50-year-old
Precisely,
concrete
right.
asbestos pipes, and
You're
bound to get
good. Now,
cracks.
if you're lucky, the leak will manifest during construction and you can fix it. But generally, leaks start small and then they get bigger as the pressure increases. The first amount of water that escapes from a leak will go down because of gravity. Sooner or later, the soil becomes saturated and then it moves up and manifests itself. So it's not by magic, it's by engineering and physics why that happens. So that even underscores the need to replace the old pipes as part of the road construction project. So with that, Chairman, I will ask Mr. Downer to go into the nuts and bolts of I think it's about four slides, and then we'll take questions. Thank you.
Hello. Morning, Chairman. Morning, members and colleagues. Just to cover a few points, Mr. Hunter, to follow on what he has said. So the SPARK project, or program as it's sometimes called, is effectively a contract between the government of Jamaica, represented by the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development, and the main contractor, who is China Harbour Engineering Company. As was mentioned earlier, there are actually 4 contract packages that covers the entire island, and each package was actually carefully selected where the parishes are contiguous, so that should there have been different contractors, they will not cross each other, have challenges. The project has 2 parts to it, which is the local and community roads, and the main roads divided into 2, $20 billion each, and there's a $5 billion contingency to treat with the water line, as is shown on the slide here. The timeline is actually 2 years. The project began sometime in early 2025, though we actually had the first road starting in December of 2024. After the 2 years would have expired, we actually have 1 year defects liability period. During that particular period, the contractor can, in fact, carry out some additional works as well, but he's required to correct any defects associated with materials he has provided or workmanship to be corrected. The stakeholders' input, as Mr. Hunter mentioned earlier, the selection of the roads were actually done through the community consultation process, from which the members of parliament were tasked to provide us with 10 priority roads. And from those roads, we went ahead and did the design. So we actually have 630 roads on record as supplied, for which we are carrying out reconstruction in keeping with the budgeted amount. What we find happening, members, is that an average per constituency, we are coming out at somewhere in the region of about 6 roads per constituency across the island. The local and community road construction has been going on. We have, in fact, had interruptions last year, as you would have known, due to Hurricane Melissa and also the September rains of 2025. At present, we're about 25.3% on our progress. The design process for the roads is done by the National Works Agency with technical support from a suite of consultants who we have engaged to assist us in the design, the engineering designs, as well as the construction supervision and management of the construction works on the ground. There are 3 consultants presently assisting us for the construction supervision, but we also have others that are assisting us in the design because of the extent of the works island-wide. We have issued so far 7 work orders, as Mr. Hunter mentioned, which constitutes 313 roads island-wide. We have also prepared the final work order for the local and community roads, which will be issued to the contractor through our parent ministry very shortly. The value of work orders 1 to 7, that from the $20 billion component for local and community roads, is actually $13.76 billion. Just for clarity, the $20 billion that you're looking at for the local and community roads, there's provision in there to cover design as well as supervision. So by and large, we're looking at about $16 billion for the road component, and we're almost at $14 billion. So the final work order being issued will take us to the limit of that. And of course, each constituency is based on the budget provision that the members of parliament have been informed of. The amount certified to date is of the order of about $10.4 billion. So we are progressing with the project status being about 195 roads that have in fact been issued to the contractor for construction. And just to clarify, when I say that, though 313 roads constitutes the work orders, there's a period between the work orders being signed off and when the contractor gets and start work, perhaps like 2 weeks or 3, as the consultant will fine-tune the design details before works get underway. So 106 roads have been either completed or been paved as we speak, and there's another 89 that are in progress that makes up the 195 roads. Moving on to the next slide. Mr. Hunter mentioned about the waterline component being approximately $5 billion. Our assessment to date has shown that we are going to need additional funding to treat with the waterline because there are, in fact, pipelines that are popping up as we go ahead and do the works. So we have projected to our parent ministry that we will need somewhere of the order of about $2.6 billion more to treat with pipeline construction as well as materials. Another question to answer from the set of questions that came from Parliament is the subcontractors. And of our 4 packages, we have approximately 26 subcontractors across all 4 packages that are actually working with our main contractor, China Harbour Engineering Company, and the names are listed in the report that we would have shared or a part of the presentation if the slides were able to be switched. We also have some photographs from the presentation just to show some of the sample of works that are ongoing, as well as some of the damage. Now, another question that was raised during the set of questions that came to us is if there was any damage from Hurricane Melissa. Just to advise, Chairman, that we actually had the roads that were completed stood up well. There was no problem with those roads. Roads that were, however, under construction where drainage works or base course works have begun, and when the hurricane hits, those would have experienced scoring. The assessment we got from the contractor for the damage is somewhere in the order of about 30 million Jamaican dollars. Not significant, as was expected, because the roads were well designed and stood up well during the hurricane. So by and large, the contractor would have experienced some slowing down during the passage of Melissa. The contractor also assisted us in clearing roads after Melissa, and the contractor has resumed works early this year and is pressing ahead. He's scheduled to complete the works by April of 2027, which is a year from now, and we're working closely with the contractor to try and realize this as much as is possible. So that in a nutshell, Chairman. You had also asked in the submission about the status of the roads per constituency. We have, in fact, provided that for each constituency with the list of 10 roads and the activity of the status on the right column, the value of the projects, and also the length of each road as was requested, reflecting each constituency. Just one quick correction. That is the table that was provided actually at the top right-hand corner indicates January 2026. Just want to correct that to reflect April 2026. That should be reading. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mrs. Hunter and Downer. I'm going to exercise Chairman's prerogative and ask 1 or 2 questions and then open the floor to members. In this, first of all, just to understand the arrangement, you have check you say, as the winner of all 4 packages, and then there are 27 subcontractors distributed across the regions or across the island, where corresponding to the particular packages. So Czech is not the actual contractor. I mean, they're the contractor of record in terms of they're responsible to you. But in terms of doing the work, it's all done by these 27 subcontractors.
So, Chairman, members, it's very important to understand. It's a good question. The contract is between Czech and the government of Jamaica through the permanent secretary representing the government of Jamaica. So those are the parties to the contract. The NWA, the CEO of the NWA is the engineer on the contract. That's me. I'm not a party to the contract. I'm a participant in the contract. It's a standard FIDIC contract, and FIDIC is very prescriptive. And one of the stipulations of FIDIC vis-a-vis subcontractors, it says the main contractor is responsible for the actions of the subcontractor. So the client does not go beyond the main contractor. So the entirety of the relationship is between the client and the main contractor, with the engineer providing the guidance. So although subcontractors do exist, the subcontractors have no legal status independent of the main contractor. So we look to the main contractor to undertake the works. It's entirely at his gift, and we look to the main contractor to remedy any defects. So that's how the contract is structured.
So I understand the legal structure, but let me just contrast that with what I experience on the ground as an MP. I don't interfere. I don't see anybody other than, say, Albion Works, which you have there as the first named subcontractor. And they have been doing, I think, executing all the contracts so far that I'm aware of in southern Manchester. So that's the only interface as an MP that I have. I get a letter, I think I get a letter, an email from NWA saying such and such a...
Did you get a letter indicating, requesting you to nominate a liaison officer?
I don't think that was... The letter was informing me of the project and who would be executing it
and
at the time frame. I believe the request for a liaison officer may have come from the contractor. I'm not clear. Either from the contractor, it may have come from...
It's from the contractor, the main contractor.
And that is... But as far as the local community is concerned, they would only interface with the subcontractor. I'm just telling you my experience in southern Manchester.
Okay.
So in other constituencies, is it that the contractor of record also does execution of contracts, or is it just...
Yes. The answer is yes.
The answer is yes.
Yes.
So it's a combination. The actual work is executed by, in some cases, subcontractors, and in some cases, the main contractor.
Yeah. And Chairman and members, this formulation is not just for form, it is for substance. And I have led enough adjudication, negotiation with contractors for claims on the contract to know that it is very important that we maintain the legal construct, because a subcontractor, one of the other recitations of FIDIC is that the engineer or the subcontractor cannot change any of the terms and conditions under the contract. So although we understand that local communities we'll in fact have a narrative here from the main contractor, and I will quote. He said, "When we start a new road, from time to time, we got obstructions from political side, either from local residents or MPs themselves, about the road or a section of the road not desirable for them. These often cause months of delay." Again, these observations will invariably be translated into a claim for additional monies. And that is why we have to be really, really circumspect in terms of the relationship between the different parties and the contractor. So for legal purposes, as well as for good order, the client sticks with the main contractor.
Okay. So if an MP, for example, were to have an issue, who would they raise it with?
Your liaison officer first, and to the best of my knowledge, each MP was written to asking the MP to nominate a liaison officer. So your first recourse would be to the liaison officer, and then the next recourse would be to the engineer staff, me. And you know, I'm always available. I do nothing more than take calls and respond to requests from MPs.
I'll just alert it to one thing and make a suggestion. If you take this committee, for example, 5 of the 6 members here were not the ones who were consulted when the program was conceived.
Yeah.
So a lot of the correspondence may have been to the original MP. And
Okay,
therefore, I would just ask, in those cases at least, that you resend that correspondence
Again,
to ensure
Chairman,
that everybody is
Again,
in.
Chairman, to the best of my knowledge, in the aftermath of the election, all members of Parliament were informed regarding that operation. And if by chance there was any slip in that, we can remedy that. But to the best of my knowledge.
Oh, well, I can tell you for certain, from my experience, it wasn't until I approached the minister that I got the list of the 10 roads, for example. Nobody wrote me from NWA to say these are the list of the 10. I may be an exception, but I'm just saying,
Okay, that's right. Not a problem.
Not making an issue of it, but just saying, in the interest of. Yes, Mr. Clark. No, you have a point of order. I was just completing a statement. Then I'll come to you. And any other member who wishes would. Sorry. Go ahead.
The point of clarification, Mr. Chairman, whilst I understand that 5 of the members here today are new, came in after the election, we would want to address the situation by making it known that the roads that were chosen were not chosen directly by the Member of Parliament, but by the way of consultation with the community.
Okay, Mr. Clark, before you came, all of that was explained to us. It was explained to us.
Mr. Chairman, are you the chairman? I realize that you lose it to your members, them.
No, Mr. Clark, you come late.
And I am
you're
late,
going over ground
Mr. Chairman,
we have covered.
I am late, Mr. Chairman,
You're going over ground that has
for one
been
reason
covered.
only, and you know that. We left here 2 o'clock this morning.
Yeah, you weren't the only one.
Not me alone, but some of the other members left before I left. I stayed until the completion. So just give me the slack, Mr. Chairman. Please, thank you.
So the second question, in terms of this overarching contractor or contractor of record, and then the process of subcontracting it, would it be fair to say that each level of contractor takes out their contractor profit from the budgeted amounts for those roads. So if you have two levels of contractor, then subcontractor who is actually executing the works, then there will be, I'm asking the question, would there typically be two levels of overheads or contractors' profit, whatever you want to refer to it as, coming out, as opposed to if the one contractor was executing the works? I'm asking about the efficiency.
Again, good question. But how it works in practice, the contract was awarded based on request for proposal with subsequent negotiation. And from memory, so we would have prepared an internal estimate engineer for the works. Check from memory came in, I think, at 30% above the engineer's estimate. And because of the provisions for negotiation, a multi-institution negotiating team comprising representative from parent ministry, NWA, Ministry of Finance, I think NWC, negotiated with check over a designated time period, and the contract was actually signed, I think, at what 18% above the engineer's estimate, based on the negotiation. So that, right? So that's the contract sign. Now, implicit in that arrangement is that the main contractor would have had his profit within that, and that is what we recognize. So any overheads to the subcontractor eats into the main contractor's overhead, not the government's purse.
Okay. But so I understand. You're saying that, however, it is allocated.
Beg your pardon?
However, that margin is allocated. It's really not of your concern
No.
in a legal sense,
Okay.
because that is a negotiation between the main contractor and the subcontractors.
Right.
But it could have an impact in terms of what is available to conduct the works at the end of the day. But let me...
No. Again, the contractor is obliged by the terms of the contract to construct the roads in accordance with standard specification and design issued to him. Okay.
Is the Wellington Drive one of the...
No.
That's not
No.
one of the... But it is an it's NWA that is doing the works?
It's NWC.
It's NWC.
Yeah.
Okay.
Doing so means.
And they're including the permanent reinstatement of the service.
Yes, they will.
All right, members, could you indicate those who wish to ask questions? I have Mr. Hines, Mr. Clark, Mr. Newell. Oh, you okay. Mr. Hines, Mr. Newell.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Good morning and welcome. All right, my first question is, does an MP has the option of asking that Czech does their roads instead of having a subcontractor to enjoy the benefit of most of the resources?
No.
Why not?
Because Czech is the contractor of record, and the contractor on record has or should have unfettered authority to execute the works in accordance with the design and the specification issued to him by the client. In fact, member, an MP, regardless of how well-intentioned the MP might be, has no local standard in terms of the Spark program, save and except to reap the benefits that would accrue from the works being done. There's a well-established legal doctrine of privity of contract that says if you're not a party to the contract, you have no local standard, in essence. So we're very concerned about persons not being party to the contract, interacting in a way that gives or creates violence to that principle. Because, as I said before, I've sat in enough negotiation and adjudication with contractors who come in with Myers Fletcher and their legal team, and I with Attorney General's lawyers and contractors are making claims for additional work or hindrance to doing work that they claim arose as a consequence of interactions with persons not party to the contract. Believe me, it becomes very, very difficult.
Okay. All right. So from your pronouncements, I can assume then that the only responsibility or duty a member of parliament has is to provide the contractor with a liaison officer.
A liaison officer, and I think it is well established at this stage that where works are being done in a constituency, there's usually correspondence, and this is the so-called partisan doctrine, that informs the MP, that says, dear MP, this serves to inform you that John Brown has been awarded a contract to undertake works of this description in your constituency. Please extend to him the necessary courtesies. That's what the letter says. The interpretation of which is that, from dialogue with the main contractor, MPs can nominate labor. Because, again, it is my understanding, that government policy and practice, you don't migrate labor from one area into a constituency. But over and above that, the main function of the MP, as I said, is to get the praise for the work when it's completed.
Okay. All right, Mr. Chairman, two more questions and I'll allow others to go. You have you have named roads here that you said they would have consulted with the community, the Spark roads, I think. I get a little parochial now if Mr. Clark will allow me, because this is the only example of Spark, which is the constituency of which I represent. I have 10 roads here, and the budget you have is $313 million to be allocated across the 10 roads, and you have decided to do 5 of the 10. Each road has its own dimensions. How do you arrive at the length of road that you'll do, and who determines which area of the road you'll complete or you do work on?
Okay, so let me answer a question that you have not asked. How did we arrive at the budget in the first instance? Again, from memory, I think Minister Morgan had issued something to all parliamentarians some time ago.
I wasn't here.
Okay. In essence, what happened, we were asked to do a survey of roads in Jamaica, which we did. And so the allocation of funds per constituency was based on a simple formula. Every constituency got $150 million, or $200 million, and then based on the road survey that we did, depending on the density of roads in your constituency, there was a top-up based on the proportion, the road density in your constituency over the total amount of roads. That would give you a factor, and the additional sum was allocated on that basis. So that is how the budget was arrived at. And the budget is fixed. So when we come to, once the roads have been identified, we then do the designs, and based on the rates which the contractor indicated in his bid, remember the contractor would have indicated his rates for the different material. And actually, Chairman, members, if you look at a typical road contract, 85% of the value it covers 6 items which repeat themselves. So once a road is identified, we know the rates that the contractor quoted in his bid. We then do the design and then we calculate the cost of the road. Now, a couple of things that we strive for. MPs were asked early in 2025 to nominate their 2 priority roads. And admittedly, I think that request was made before your incumbency. But, you know, we operate on whoever is the MP. So 2 roads were selected as priority by MPs at a point in time. So the cost of those 2 roads would then be drawn down from the total, and what remains is the rest that would do the other roads. We try to select roads that will have start at a designated point and finish at an intersection. We don't want to choose a road that finishes in the middle of nowhere. We don't want to choose a road, for example, there's an MP that wanted us to do a particular road, and when we did the calculation based on the money that remains on his budget, it would only do, like 5% of the road, and we said no because, that poses a problem. Then the other criteria we use is whether or not the road requires water supply. A lot of MPs, when we say it requires water supply, although they can appreciate the water supply, they want the road to be built as quickly as possible. But we think that it is a greater benefit to society if the water supply.
Clarify, when you say water supply, this is new water supply?
New water supply.
Oh, okay.
New water supply. And in some instances, although initially we were told that this road will not require new pipes, once the construction started, we realized that it needed new pipes.
So I don't think you have answered the question about
how we select the road.
No, the portion of the road. So you're doing Hope Road.
Mm-hmm.
Who determines what parts of Hope Road is done?
What section?
Yes, what section is done?
Because as I said before, so we look at the money available and we look at the cost of the road. Now, if the money available can only do a small fraction of the road, then we would not do that. And we would do a road, as I said before, from intersection to intersection that gives it a natural end.
All right, from a member of parliament standpoint, when you list the roads, I'm just speaking now from dealing with my constituents. When you list the road, you say that you're doing Guinea Corn Road, Orange River, Longbow, all those roads in northern Clarendon. The citizens and the members of the community believe that you're going to do the entire road. Because you say in the Spark program, we are doing 10 roads and we have allocated $313 million. So they think that the entire road will be done. When you start the road, they get excited. And then when they see the equipment moving out of the community and going out, then they start to get disappointed and quarrel. So then just allow me a little.
Sorry.
Then they will then understand when you explain to them that there's not enough money to do all the road. Then they're starting to say, then why didn't they do this part of the road instead of that part of the road? So while you consult with them to choose the road, why don't you consult with them then if you're not going to do all of the road to say which part of the road is best done? I am understanding and I appreciate your engineering skills and knowledge and what you need to do. But when you are packed up and all gone, the member of parliament have to deal with the citizens.
With the people. Yeah.
Yes, I have to live with them and deal with it every day. So I don't know if there's an appreciation for that or if there's an understanding for that. And then when the road is done and the water is running off the road and running off in people's yard and all of those things, I have to find money to build drain to take the water. Yes.
Okay, so Mr. Hines.
So those are the reasons I am asking all these questions.
Understand. So when you asked the question earlier on what role can the MP play, I was remiss in not saying that perhaps one of the roles that the MP can play is that because the MP knows with perfect certainty what the budget is, the MP can also assist in that communication. Because the truth is that the 10 roads, when they have the community consultation and the 10 roads are chosen, although we have evidence that some MPs announced the 10 roads as 10 roads to be done.
Well, that's what you say.
Notwithstanding the impact of the budget, the fact is that because MPs were asked to choose 2 priority roads back in, February of last year, it means that certainly new MPs would have to, that's a legacy that you end up with. So the budget that remains under your stewardship would be the budget minus the cost of the first 2 roads that were chosen. And that's a reality.
Right, but
Okay,
but,
I will just do the last
but
question.
Just the same way you asked last year, a year ago, for the priority for the first 2 roads. I'm not suggesting to change the 10 roads, but I'm suggesting could an MP now tell you what the priority for the next 2 roads are, or what their priority is?
Okay.
Yes.
Let me
Or,
answer.
you know, with a hurricane intervening, the priorities
The
will
realities have changed with the
shifted.
hurricane, yes.
So, Mr. Chairman, I just 1 second.
Go
Mr.
ahead.
Chairman. No, man.
Member from
I have
St.
with
James
me.
Central, please.
I have with me. I come in.
No, but you don't need a mic. Your voice is loud enough to.
So, Mr. Chairman, to
Someone
answer your
best
question,
ignore.
and yes, that is a very sensitive matter. I have with me a compendium of all the correspondence that we have received from every single MP asking for changes to different roads. Okay? To the point, Chairman, where as the engineer, I advise the client that there has to be a certain degree of good sense, engineering judgment, and cost matrix to determine whether a particular request for a change can be accommodated. Because the contract is a live contract. And the time it takes to change your schedule and to do other things, the contractor is sitting down, tallying up his delay, and it's called prolongation costs. He will invoice the government for additional funds for any day that he sits there and his equipment and person not being used. So,
but separate from that, there'll also be costs. Because when you do that variation, you would then have to get an engineer now to recast the new road,
yeah,
etc.
absolutely.
So it's
absolutely.
not just delays.
Absolutely.
It's technical.
Right. So what it is, we were able to accommodate some requests for change early in the contract. But as you approach the end of the contract, it's more difficult. And so we had long discussions at the ministry, at the policy level, on the matter of changes. And we do understand that with a number of new MPs coming in September, you have a fresh eye, fresh view. And we did, I personally met with a number of MPs in my office. The PS did similarly, and we have been exchanging letters. So to the extent that requests for change and prioritization can be accommodated without doing any violence to the contract, we have acceded to that. But there is a limit. And what we ask for is that there be understanding that when we communicate and say a particular request cannot be accommodated, it's not because of malice. It's because of numbers. Now, it is my understanding, and this is not an announcement because I don't have the authority so to do.
So
but
don't do it then.
Since Park seeks to achieve this comprehensive redo of roads, it follows logically that there may be other aspects or other versions of Spark to come. So not everything can be done in this one go around.
I just want to attempt to summarize what you said. It would be difficult to introduce new roads at this point of the contract.
Right.
However, within the 10 roads,
Right.
it may still be possible to reprioritize the remaining
And we have
roads
done
that
that.
have not
And that we have,
started.
yeah.
And so if an MP had that
Yeah.
request,
Yeah.
that could...
And we have done that. And we have done that.
And that can still be
Yeah.
entertained.
And I have the evidence. We have done that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yes, and I have requested, and it was not granted to me.
Was it a new road or a repair?
Within the list, yes.
Prioritization,
When I made the request, then I receive a work order immediately for the next road to start. Conveniently.
No.
But-
Mr. Hines, to be fair, Mr. Hines, a work order means that a road was identified for implementation. Engineers would have spent time designing the road. Engineers would have spent time designing the water supply. All of that would then be put together in bills of quantities, pricing, contract terms and conditions. So there's no coincidence between your request and you getting notice of a work order. The work on the work order would have started long before.
That's understood.
Long before.
I'll take your word for it.
Thank you, sir.
Yes. My last question is, as a union person, did you standardize the payments for the work done, whether it be a liaison, a tradesman, or a laborer on the road work? Because I ask the question because the fees offered to the workers
You're talking...
is sometimes below minimum wage. And when I press the contractor or the persons on the work, they say that's the rate they get from above and they can't change it. And that's what they've been using. And
To answer your question, Mr. You said me as a union person. Actually, it's my younger brother who was the vice president at NW.
No, I am the union.
Oh, you mean you?
I am the union person. Yes, I am the union person.
I know
No,
you're
man,
not,
I know your identity. I will not misrepresent you.
I know you're in another context. Again, member, it has been my experience, and very hard to refute personal experience. When a main contractor is appointed, you stick with the main contractor. Because every time anyone intervenes in the modus operandi of the main contractor, it causes problems. We, on behalf of the government, as I said before, this contract was internationally tendered. The contractor sent in his bid. The process allowed for negotiation with the main contractor, and that negotiation was carried out with a multidisciplinary team representing different enterprises on behalf of the government, and a contract was executed between the government and the main contractor. We don't go beyond that. So now, in the industry, there's a GIC rate, Joint Industrial Council rates, which obtains in the construction industry. Whether or not Czech, as the main contractor, subscribes to those rates, that's their business. The client doesn't interfere with that. Now, from a policy point of view, the government of Jamaica may want to make some pronouncement, but certainly within the ambit of a contract, we stick with the prescription of the contract.
I am not getting from you that it is Czech's business whether they pay at minimum rates or not. Mm-hmm. Is that what you're saying? It is left up to Czech to pay at the rates at which they want to pay?
But Mr. Hunter said it's a standard FIDIC contract.
Yeah.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but isn't the FIDIC contract relates to the rates prescribed in the negotiation of the Joint Industrial Council?
Yeah.
No, but isn't it usually there are fluctuations if a new rate award?
Okay, so
right.
I think what has been alluded to, Chairman, the JIC rates, which a lot of the master builders subscribe to, it is not obligatory.
Okay, you're saying it's just a guide, it's not a contractual obligation.
And there had been discussions in the past, but again, that goes to policy.
Okay.
We just stick with the contract that has been executed and we implement that contract.
But I think the feedback that all MPs will share with you is that the rates that are offered are not, generally speaking, attractive to the residents.
What it means is that the main contractor will do most of the work himself.
So that's my experience. My personal experience is I try and stay away from getting involved, because then people. Yeah. Why did you give me a liaison officer? He goes out, he gets flag persons, this, that, and the other, and then when the rates are they consider unfair, then it comes back to the to the MP.
Yes.
Not only that.
So in instances where
when the auditors come to audit, they're going to say the contract started out at $10 and it ended up at $12, and then everybody presumes that escalation is due to some underhanded thing. No. So we stick with what's in the contract.
So is check required, or any contractor required to pay minimum wage or more? At least minimum wage.
No, the law of the
That's the law.
country. The law of
That's
the
the law.
country.
But
No
so
check-
where they're paying below
anybody who
minimum
operates in
wage, how do you
Jamaica
treat
has
with that? Because that has been the experience.
No. Again, as far as I know, minimum wage is the law, and every contractor is obliged to do that. Now, what they pay over and above that's
Not
their
above,
business.
below.
So what you're saying, Mr. Ange, you're
well,
aware of persons
Yes,
being offered rate?
people being below.
Well, that would be against the law.
And that would be for Ministry of Labour, too,
That
not
the
for me.
Ministry of Labour should be alerted to.
So isn't it of concern to
me?
NWA that your contractors are paying below minimum wage?
Concern as a citizen, perhaps, but whether or not I'm sufficiently concerned that I'm going to go and do something contractually, no.
You wanted to add something?
You sure about what you just said?
Absolutely.
Just hold on, Mr. Hines. The PS wanted to respond to that.
So, Chair and members, I just want to say, Member of Parliament, where there are specific instances, we would want that. Well, as the owner of the contract, on behalf of the government, I certainly would want to be aware of those specific cases so that we can take that up with the contractor.
I welcome that intervention. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Chairman, there's a follow-up to Member Hunt.
Okay, go ahead. Just if it's a follow-up, make it brief, because there were other people in the line.
Yeah.
Go ahead.
I just want the member to, because I hear mention of person being paid below minimum wage, provide us with the evidence, because the government of Jamaica has a policy in place that you can't pay below the minimum wage. And if so, provide the evidence so that a criminal action can be taken against the person who is paying. So rather than just sit here and say that you know that people are being paid below minimum wage, provide us with the evidence.
That's essentially what the permanent secretary just said. Yeah. Well, you are next, so you don't have to follow up. You can go ahead.
Yes. So just for the record, I am aware of the contractor offering to employ at below the minimum wage. I was called and intervened as a citizen. At the time, I was not member of parliament. And with the support of the member of parliament, I went in and had a conversation. And I advised the contractor that the rate was in violation of Jamaica's labor laws in terms of minimum wage, and further told him that even though I was asked to help him to find labor, I would play no part in it if he is offering to pay below minimum wage. And I threatened to shut down the work site. I did. I threatened to call in the Ministry of Labour and to make a complaint. And my understanding is that if someone is being paid below the minimum wage in Jamaica, that Ministry of Labour would come in, and the effect would be to shut down the site. That is before becoming as a citizen.
Mr. Newell,
Yes, as a citizen.
I don't want you to be misunderstood.
Yes.
I don't want you to be misunderstood. So I want to clarify that you threatened to bring to the attention of the authorities that
Yes.
the law was being violated.
Correct.
And you expected the authorities to.
And this was April, and for clarity, this was April of 2025.
Right.
This was April of 2025. Now,
Right.
Chairman.
No, but I don't want.
Yes.
The word threaten
Yes.
can be misinterpreted or interpreted many different ways.
Right. But
You could
I
threaten
also
to
want
report.
Yes.
Or they might think you threaten
Yes.
to use some physical
No. To call the Ministry of Labour.
means to shut down.
But if I may
So,
further.
I'm glad. Allow the
Yeah.
person to clarify what he means.
Well, No, I don't think that is recognized in any parliamentary. Yes.
And I am asking the
Thank
member,
you.
I am asking the member who is recognized to just
Thank
clarify
you.
the statement, because I know it is, I know it is subject to various interpretations. So I want him to be very clear.
May I now proceed, Chairman?
Yes, go ahead.
So that is one. I would join Member Hines, though, in encouraging any Jamaican who is offered or being paid below minimum wage on any of these sites to also call in the Ministry of Labour and have that dealt with. Now, in terms of the priority roads, the MP priority roads, Mr. Hunter, I attended the 2024, I think it was, consultation at St. Mary High School as a citizen to discuss the 10 roads. And sometime after, when I saw the 10 roads listed on the Spark website, because the Spark website doesn't give any indication that some roads will be attended to and some would not. So as a citizen at that time, I had a legitimate expectation that the roads listed on the Spark program website were the roads that I could expect would have been repaired. And I think that informed certain decisions of other actors. For example, in Islington, where I live, I know the councillor had secured contract, to my knowledge, to work on a road. I think it was Guava River to Pimento Hill. But because it was listed on the Spark program as one of the roads for repair, one of the 10, a decision would have been taken to allocate that resource elsewhere. And I think Jamaicans on a whole have that legitimate expectation, having gone on site and having seen their road listed, whether it is Esho or Thompson Town. And so I'm wondering whether NAA or the ministry has any intention to communicate in a better way what this means. And I know the information on the Spark website has been static. There's no, the information that is here is not on the website. So people won't know that only 4 of the 10 road, for example, if they're going on the site. And so I'm wondering if there's any intention to fix that in terms of the communication.
And one of the values that the PAAC's sittings bring to the public is to elucidate some of these issues that may not have been clear, and to give an opportunity to not just members but the government representatives to clarify these issues.
Good observation, Mr. Noel. Yes, at the time of the community consultation, I think I'm trying to remember if the budget was finalized then. I think the budget was finalized subsequent to that, because the controlling issues relating to how much you can do still comes back to the budget. And so one can understand that, yes, in fact, there is an MP who I shall not name, who actually had a nice billboard announcing their 10 roads. But, of course, when you apply the budget to the 10 roads, it couldn't do all 10. And we can see that to the extent that 10 roads were identified without the rider of the budget being the constraining factor, it could have given rise to that belief. But I think since then, we have made it known that there is a fixed amount of money in the budget for Spark, and that money can only buy a certain amount of roads.
Now, in terms of the MP priority roads, when I wrote to my then Member of Parliament to find out about priorities, I was advised that a particular road that we thought should have been priority, which was recommended, was not selected even in the 4 because of concerns about pipes. However, the 2 roads which were since selected and where work started in April of 2025 are now still filled with mud. And I think the contractor is trying to source base material to cover over pipes. And I'm wondering, because last year, about April or May, the residents of one of the communities had to call in TVJ to point to the fact that water was bubbling, coming up to the surface, even though the stated intent coming from the liaison and others was that they were going to asphalt the road. And so I want to know whether community knowledge or there was any opportunity, because I heard you mention that NWC is who you contact regarding whether there are leaks. And normally that would sound like the reasonable thing to do. But sometimes NWC doesn't know where the leaks are. But in every community, the residents can tell you where the leaks are. So I'm wondering whether there is any requirement to rely on or to engage community knowledge for the leaks.
Yeah, and Mr. Noel, there's no gainsaying that the more information that we can get and the more input that comes from the community and interested persons helps the process. But I must confess that from a project implementation perspective, given a fixed budget and given a finite time to undertake, because the contract has a finite time, there is a part of us who would, not needing water pipes is nice, because it allows you to get on with the business and it allows you to do a road at a lower cost. Once you take the decision that it needs pipes, whether by the NWC's prescription or you started the works and you realize, for example, I can clearly recall the very first project we did on the spot, the groundbreaking project for Spark was in member Paul Wells' constituency. And the design for that project had no pipes. And, a week, 2 weeks into the construction, we realized that we had to put pipes in it. So that then meant redesign, more costing, and so on. So we do accept that there's a degree of difficulty which is attached to any road that requires pipe, whether we knew in advance or we discover as we do the construction. And it's something that so soon as we have that information, we have to pivot to design scenario 2, which is pipe. Now, the pipe component, China Harbor did get a contract to import pipe material that's coming from China. So there is a delivery issue with pipes. They have to come in. There is also the scenario where while you're waiting on those pipes to be manufactured and come in, we're buying pipes on the local market, which may or may not be the same price as the other pipes. So it's a lot of things that we're trying to juggle to deliver to the community. In St. Mary, my...
All right. Mr. Hunter, I'm going to have to ask you to keep the answers as concise as possible. We appreciate the information, but I know I'm cognizant of having Prof. Shirley here, and we need to get to him and your other. So I'm going to ask Mr. Newell to conclude this round of his questions, and then...
Sorry, you'll ask me to what?
No, just to quickly
no
go
problem.
through the remaining
Mr. Hunter,
questions.
can you... Sorry, go ahead.
And then Mr. Clark and Ms. Burchell.
Can you tell me what the average cost per kilometer has worked out to under the Spark program?
For the local and community roads, $50 million per kilometer.
How does that compare to the experience of NWA in terms of cost per kilometer of the roads that you have managed?
That's roads. Equivalent. Because remember, the Spark contract started out with the NWA preparing an estimate of what it costs.
It's the engineer's estimate
Engineer's
that would have guided the contract negotiation.
Should I take it then that your internal cost is about 18% below per kilometer?
Yeah, at the time. Yes.
So about 42 million per kilometer is your internal. And how does this compare to best practices regionally or internationally, if you have such information?
It all depends on the design of the road. So Mr. Donor is the technocrat in terms of road design.
Well, remember, as Mr. Hunter says, it's actually depends on what you're going to do. So we are doing what we call rehabilitation, reconstruction of the road. So the price that we get is standard. Prices depends on the local market, as you are aware. So in Jamaica, for instance, we don't have to import base material. It's available from quarries that we can get material from. We have a certain distance that the material can be sourced from, which are radius of approximately 10 kilometers within. 35 kilometers, we can get the material. There are asphalt plants across the island. So haulage cost is therefore regulated accordingly. So it just depends on those factors that make up the overall cost. And
so
for
our
us
cost per kilometer is less than regional and global would be then?
No, it's a little difficult to say if it's the same as a regional, because if you look at a region, one of the regional entities like Dominica, where they don't have an asphalt plant, their price is quite different from Trinidad that actually manufactures and has asphalt there. So the prices would be stark different between the two. So our price is based on our local, and it's considered reasonable because we spend a lot of time developing what we call unit prices annually, tracking the rates and the adjustments nationally, looking at what is happening globally. And so our prices that we have prepared as unit costs are fair, standard, and are reasonable for our local market. And the design that we do is informed that.
I'll ask one more question, Chairman, and then I'll allow. In terms of coordination of road construction, again, a community, for example, Killancolly, where in another, I don't want to set a period of time because of how long it has been, but at some point they will have paved roads going in. But the Highgate to Deanpen, where they will traverse in order to get into Killancolly, sometimes it's like a riverbed. So in terms of your decisions on which main roads, not on the Spark necessarily, I'm hoping somebody else will ask about the main road component, but in terms of your decisions on which main roads to do interventions on, are those, or will those be informed by the areas that you are doing Spark projects so that there can be a totally different experience in terms of commuters?
Okay, so the Spark is in two components. There's the local road component, and then there's the main road component. The local road component was entirely dictated by the community consultations and input. The main road component is at the gift of the NWA. Those are our roads. So we will specify which main roads to be undertaken based on objective criteria like traffic count, important buildings, facilities, hospitals, schools, connectivity to towns from point A to point B, population, serve, and so on. So there's a 6 criteria.
I think there's a misunderstanding of what I'm asking. I'm not asking about the main road component of Spark. I'm saying an area like Deanpen, which might not be on the Spark program, but people have to traverse there to get to the good roads. By the time I get to the good road, my tire busts up and mash up. But you have other interventions that NWA does.
Other parts
Will
of the
those interventions be informed at all by where you're doing good roads? Because some people call and cuss, you know. You're fixing Deanpen, you're fixing Killancolly, but the road to get there is so terrible. What are you going to do about this?
Yeah, just answering that, what percentage of your overall road construction or reconstruction and maintenance program is Spark? Would Spark represent what percentage of it? I can't remember from the budget, but just remind us.
Spark is on the capital side of the budget.
Right.
Yeah.
And then on your maintenance,
the recurrent side, the maintenance.
Your entire capital budget is Spark, or you have other?
Well, we have other projects under the capital side of the budget. But on the recurrent side, the Parliament, you have gifted us $5 billion for the whole country for the whole year. That's what Parliament has voted. So the question is, what can we buy with that?
sounds like the parable of the loaves and the fishes.
I'm just saying that is what,
I wouldn't want you to lose sight
in
of
the
the question
wisdom of
because
MPs, that's what you voted us.
the reason I wouldn't want you to lose sight, Mr. Hunter, is there is and I represent a lot in St. Mary, Portland, and St. Thomas. And there has been a feeling that even of that 5 million pie, we don't see equity in terms of the distribution from it sometimes. We have difficulty identifying equity in terms of the distribution of it, where our needs are concerned. So what I want to know, because yes, you have $5 million, but it's never divided by 63. And I understand you won't, but you have decisions to make in terms of this 5 million. So I just want to know whether any of it is
okay. So, Mr.
will be
Noel,
coordinated.
Just to make disclosure, we are in receipt of your communication in that regard. Got it this week, and we are examining the needs that you have identified.
But this is not a parochial matter.
No,
but the
consequence matter.
broader challenge,
Yeah.
Mr. Newell, which most of us here face, maybe with the exception of Dr. Dawes and Mr. Clark, is that the rural areas, based on the criteria of traffic count, population density, etc., the rural areas will always get left behind, and just based on those objective criteria. So, unfortunately, that's our burden to bear.
I don't get
Mr.
that
Clark
answer,
and then
but
Mrs. Merchant.
I haven't received an answer, but I'll yield.
Who is chairing the meeting?
Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Who is chairing the meeting?
Mr. Clark, your
Mr.
mic.
Chairman, you allow... anyway, my mic is on. Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chair... I have read. It's a very
No,
good thing that you have
please,
read.
members, don't waste time arguing. Just your mic is on. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman. Mr. Chairman, my colleague would have listened to his colleague making a statement of hearsay. And we are at Parliament. And so I am asking the chair to guide the member that if a situation as he speak or as he spoke of, that something of a criminal nature that he witnessed, his duty as a legislator is to bring it to the attention of the authority. And so this morning, Mr. Chairman, I'm asking you again to ask the member to provide the information that he allegedly say happened, or we are going to ask that it be struck from the minute. Mr. Chairman, it is as it is, even though he said that he was on point, it is hearsay until it is documented and bring to forth. 1, 2. Obviously, you don't understand hearsay, so you won't know. Hearsay, unless there is a paper trail, or you can stand in front of the accused and say, yes, I am saying on record that you did this.
All right,
Mr. Chairman, direct the meeting accordingly, please. Ask the member to present the information in writing to the authority. 2, through you to the ED, Sir Hunter. Is there a government policy as it relates to the changing of roads that have been named already? Is there a government policy?
Yes, and I will. The PS is the employer. So,
Madam PS,
she's best
please
to answer that.
So 2 things, Chair and members. My voice is not cooperating with me today, but I'm trying.
We listen.
All right, so sparks will fly when you're all representing your constituents. And so, we in the ministry, along with our agencies, we really want to work very, very collaboratively with the members of Parliament on both sides of the fence. That is what I will say. I will remind members, having sat here for some time and listened to the discourse, I'm just reminding members of ministry paper, which was recently tabled in Parliament, and I want members to just refresh their memory. It is dated sometime in February 2026. It speaks about the guidelines governing the involvement of third parties and the members of Parliament, the contractors, councillors, civil society groups, community members, and private sector organizations are classified as the third-party group in implementing our road infrastructure projects. I want to direct members' attention specifically to paragraph 6 of that ministry paper, and I'm going to read it for you, Chair, if you'll permit me. It says, where challenges arise during project implementation, third parties are expected to channel complaints and concerns through established administrative and reporting mechanisms rather than direct intervention. This ensures that issues are addressed in a structured, transparent, and accountable manner by the responsible implementing agencies. And Mr. Hunter would have alluded to the responsible implementing agencies as well as the role of the ministry in the implementation of these infrastructure projects. In terms of the general policy direction for changes in the work orders, I myself have received quite a number of them, and they come. I consult the minister in charge of works as well as the head of the NWA to see to what extent these requests can be facilitated. We would have said before that we discourage to a large extent the change requests. We would have noted that extensive consultations would have taken place prior to some of the new members of Parliament coming in to office. And so we have to have regard for those consultations that would have taken place, even in terms of the costs, because as Mr. Hunter would have said, it is a live contract. And the very MPs here and yourself, Chair, will hold us accountable when we are looking at how the projects have complied, how have they adhered to their budgetary allocations. So while we are lenient and we do understand the plight of the MPs, we look at them, the engineers look to what extent the proposal is in keeping with budgetary implications and timeline for the implementation of the overall project. But generally speaking, we do not encourage these change requests. And Chair, I just want to say that I'm very happy for this opportunity that we're having here just to share and to have a discourse, with members, so that when the change requests are denied, and we've had to do it, and it's both sides of the aisle because we don't see colors. And so you members will understand where we are coming from when we say this is one that cannot be accommodated at this time.
Thank you very much, Madam P.S. And I am happy that you went deep into the answer.
Yeah,
because
we're trying to
Mr.
allow
Chairman, you just allow
but you're
Member
not asking
Newell.
questions.
It is
you're
not fair, Mr.
pontificating.
Chairman, that you give the gentleman 5 questions and you're trying to limit me now.
This is your third intervention since you arrived late.
Mr. Chairman, I asked you a point of clarification, which one of them you didn't give to me.
Anyway, you have more questions?
Yes, Mr. Chairman.
Please go ahead. Please go ahead.
Lover of my soul to thy bosom fly.
Think about a question now.
Mr. Chairman, Mr. Chairman, I want to let my colleagues know I have been here for 3 terms. If them continue to try and distract me, we are going to be here. So shut your mouth and allow me to ask a question.
Please focus on
Mr. Chairman, I am happy that the PS would have gone into depth to explain. Because, Mr. Chairman, not because, and I keep hearing my colleagues mentioning Melissa. Sparks is not the only road program. Once Sparks has been designed and procured and is out there, it is not that easy to change. And that's hence I asked the question about the policy.
And we got the
so
answer.
let it be known. Yes, I asked the question, I expect you to get the answer. The very bill that you fight against last night would deal with. I am making my presentation. I can question and I can
You're not
comment.
making presentations here.
The very bill that you fight against last night would have been the bill, or is going to be the bill that is going to deal with the matters of Melissa and the urgency with which you want those roads. You understand? 2, Mr. Chairman, I listened to the ED again, and he made mention of contractors asking for additional sum because of what would have happened in specific case. My question to you now, sir, is there any of that situation in Central St. Mary wherein the contractor would have written to you requesting extra fund because of a delay?
But
I'm surprised.
Contractor
Thanks, Ira.
Contractor would not specify a particular location. What the contractor will do, and how the contract is structured, the contractor first gives what is called a notice of claim. So he advises me to say, I intend to make a claim because of certain circumstance. And then it takes some time to compile the claim because those claims will have to then be examined.
No. It's Dr. Dawes. No.
Mr. Chairman.
Yeah, I am running this committee, and I have a responsibility to move it along.
Your colleague, and it is in the minute.
Dr. Dawes, turn on your mic.
You, Mr. Chairman, try to nice it up, trying to get him to say something.
No, Dr. Dawes, do not turn off your mic. You are recognized. Please.
Thank you for the recognition, Mr. Chair. Madam Pace, you appropriately reminded us of the ministry paper. Can you give us the channels, the official channels by which we should be corresponding, raising complaints, making requests, etc., for the record?
All right. So given that the contract, we are really the owner, the Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development is the owner of the contract, and so certainly if there's a problem with the contractor or wherever, certainly you could write. You could either write to the minister who's in charge of works, or you write to me as the permanent secretary, and it will be addressed, I can assure you. And even if the complaints come to the NAA, they channel it to us in the central ministry. So there is that joined-up approach.
Okay. And this is the approach going forward, and all MPs have been made aware of this?
Well, the ministry paper was tabled.
It was
in
tabled, but it
Parliament,
never
and
stated.
we have the
it never
responsibility
stated right. I think the responsibility ought to go out because this was an MP-led initiative, even though the consultations were community-based, and we heard about the anecdotal billboard that was out there. MPs owned this. It was used extensively in the run-up to elections, and we, as the MPs now who are sitting in the chairs, we have to report back to the persons who were involved in those consultations. They have not changed. And I believe that the standardization of the communications surrounding projects, it ought to be formalized and letters dispatched to every member of parliament to let them know exactly what to do, how to approach complaints, concerns that they have, given that the ministry paper was tabled recently. Now, I say this on the background, and I can personally speak for myself that I have no issue at all with NWA, Mr. Downer and Mr. Hunter, right, E.G. Hunter. They have been very responsive to me. However, I must speak on behalf of other colleagues who are not here, who have expressed interest in understanding exactly how to present complaints. And I'll speak particular for the member from St. Thomas Eastern, who raised a concern about the Landtop Road, which, according to this list, has drainage works ongoing, but she is saying that there is nothing taking place right now. Whether there's a miscommunication or something, there's a disconnect there with what the MP is seeing on the ground and what is on the paper in front of me. There is also the concern that the Stanton Road to Spring Garden Road was supposed to be started in May, but I see here it's scheduled to commence in July. This would lead, if there's no dynamic conversations taking place through the channels, then it would leave the MP frustrated and the constituents just as concerned, because if it was communicated to them before, if it hasn't started, if the liaison isn't on the ground working, then the channel of communication would not exist between the MP, the liaison, and the contractors and NWA. So I believe that something formal needs to go out, and I would beg on behalf of the member from St. Thomas Eastern that some conversations take place surrounding the concerns that she has.
The table you shared with us in the report with the April update, could something like that be periodically, whether monthly or quarterly at a minimum, be shared? Because we know timelines slide, etc. May can become July and so on. But I find this very helpful, even for just the roads in South Manchester. And I'm wondering, I imagine it's updated on a periodic basis, and if it could be shared, I think that would be very helpful.
Just want to say for the record, we have met with Ms. Shaw in my office, I think like 2 months ago, and listened to her thing. So it's not an issue. And the ones that you have alluded to, we'll take it on board. It's not a problem.
Okay.
Ms. Birchall?
Sorry,
you weren't finished, Dr. Dawes?
No, one more question. I see where, so the initial completion date was December of this year, and we're now into March of next year. That's just a few months, but for the majority of the projects, the different packages, we're at best 27.7%, overall 25%. Do you think that you can?
That percentage. Okay, so percentage completion can either be based on physical work or certified value. Physical work is more understandable, but it's more difficult to measure. So, as an example, if you lay 10 kilometers of pipeline, the pipe is laid, covered up, it's under the ground, we wouldn't report on that activity until the pipe is tested and it passed the test. So physically, the work would have been done, but because it is not yet passed the pressure test, we wouldn't report. So what we have reported on is certified value, meaning that this is the money that the contractor literally has been paid. And there's a lag time. So, for example, if that pipe then passes the test within a day, the day after it passed the test, the certified value would jump balloon because of it. So it takes a little understanding. Overall, though, of the entire 300, near 400 roads that will be done on the segment 1, we have issued that to the contractor. So the contractor has that. The only component that remains is the main road component. So we think that, given the delays from Melissa.
So within this fiscal year, the local component would be complete?
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Okay. All right.
So we're confident.
Thank you.
Ms. Bertram?
Okay, thank you. Mr. Hunter, PS, I wonder if you have built in the Spark program objective measures of success and failure, and what would some of those be, your criteria, and how would you assess the progress on the Spark when you measure that against your objectives?
Good question. Okay, so prior to your coming in this morning, Ms. Burchell, did indicate that the overarching objective of Spark was to tackle the road portfolio in Jamaica and to carry out a major reconstruction of the road portfolio, largely because a lot of the roads that we have were never properly designed along engineering lines with line of sight, camber for runoff of stormwater. Also, the roads will incorporate new water supply, which is a significant item for the value of land adjacent to the roads. And for the main road component, we'll also have fiber optic ducts for fiber optic cables to be installed that will expand the National Broadband Initiative, which allows for continuity of government. If there's a Category 5 hurricane that takes down everything above ground, you'll have an underground network. So these are all things that we're looking for from Spark. So we would define success, A, to be the construction of the roads in accordance with the design. And the design for the local roads will be different from the design for the main roads, based on things like the weight of vehicles that each road will carry. So, completion of the roads on time, on budget, the inclusion of the support infrastructure, drainage, water supply, fiber optic ducts. Employment would be one, and we've categorized that. Involvement of local subcontractors, that was part and parcel of the Spark undertaking, and that has been achieved. So yes, we do have an idea of what we define, how we'll define success at the end of this.
And you believe that Spark is sparking based on those measures and where we are now? So, just one.
Well, you might want to rephrase that. Let me suggest, what percentage of those objectives have we achieved thus far?
Proportionate to where the project is. Yes. Because largely, the objectives that we have set are physical objectives. How many subcontractors, utilizing, in fact, in the tender document for Spark, one of the conditions was that the contractor should involve local subcontractors. Yes. So that was in the tender document, and it's incorporated in the contract. And the evidence that we've provided here shows the number of subcontractors that have been used.
All right, members, I want to move to here. Professor Shirley.
No,
we've got 2 hours. So,
no, I'm not through.
No, okay, I'm just saying, let's move quickly through the remaining questions.
Right. Using... You asked 10 non-questions. Allow me to ask
please avoid distracting each other. Let's just...
Mr. Hunter, thank you. Using St. James, the parish, as a case from your report here, I note that there are 5 constituencies in St. James. And in the status column, it clearly shows the progress of the work in these constituencies, as measured by the money paid. What is of note is that if I could pull out one constituency randomly, South St. James. Of the 10 roads identified, only one road has had drainage works ongoing as the status. No other road has been touched in that constituency. When you compare it with the others where there is some degree of progress occurring, could we get an understanding as to the priority that goes into getting work started in one area versus another, and why this stark reality for one constituency when compared with the others?
Okay, so again, the parishes that were most severely affected by Melissa would be, as a collateral consideration, be affected in terms of spark. Because one of the management decisions that we took is that we suspended work on the spark in the immediate aftermath of the hurricane, and then redeploy those resources towards the clearing the roads. And I think we only got back to full steam late December. So there will be a lag time with some of the work in the most affected parishes. But again, as I said, Spark is a 2-year contract, and the contractor has not yet indicated any desire for additional time. But suffice it to say that what has not yet been initiated will catch up.
My final question, and thank you for that. My final question has to do with the main road component. And I'm speaking again, just randomly thinking of another constituency, South St. James, where you outlined earlier that there is a list of criteria, 6. I noted 4 that goes into the selection of which main road will benefit from spark intervention. 1A, traffic, important buildings, connectivity, population. A constituency like South St. James perhaps would not qualify and has not qualified under even the road patching program that was rolled out recently. It didn't qualify under the GO program or those programs, save and except for the Montpelier Road that started with J6 before Hurricane Melissa and continued. Not one single road in South St. James has been touched, and it was a hurricane-ravaged constituency. How can we intervene? How can we intervene to see how some priority can be given to a constituency that has been so devastated, where the main road into the constituency, which is Spring Mount, damaged, can't pass, and persons have to go through Hampton to Gutters, which is a precipice, or through Roehampton to Barnet Bush. How can constituencies that have been so devastated by Hurricane Melissa not be prioritized for any of these programs, not the road patching, not the GO program, and now being told that perhaps we may escape the main road distribution because we don't qualify for these sexy things like traffic and important buildings?
Okay, just a clarity. Okay. The criteria that I indicated are the usual criteria that we technocrats will use. But the World Bank and these other institutions will tell you there are usually different templates that you apply before you make the final decision. Okay. So generally, you start with the objective criteria, and then you can superimpose on those other considerations. That component is still under discussion with the employer. Our job is to make recommendation. We then have discussion at a certain level, and then the final list will be chosen. So the final list has not yet been chosen. We hope to do that in short term. With respect to the other needs of the constituencies, I mean, just as Mr. Noel has done, he authored a nice letter to us asking for assistance.
And I've done the same.
And you can similarly author a nice letter to us. And Mr. Downer will come and visit your constituency and see for himself the issues that you have.
Thank you, Mr.
And
Downer.
then we'll take it from there.
Thank you very much. Yeah. We greatly appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
All right, there was one final question. I really want to move on to Port Authority now, but since you...
I just wanted to follow up on something that was a suggestion you made that was accepted, Chair, that the report be shared with the House from time to time. I would only ask, though, that for the constituencies, the percentage completion also be included instead of just the text status, so we can get an idea of where.
Is that possible? Yeah. Okay. All right. Well, thank you very much, PS, Mr. Hunter. You're welcome to stay if you want to hear the erudite presentation from Professor Shirley. So I never had the privilege of being one of his students. So this might be the closest I get to benefiting from his wisdom. Professor Shirley, you want to take the floor, and we would just... You don't need to move. You don't need to move. You're close enough. Yes, you're excused, Mr. Hunter. If you want, you can come to the front, or if you want to speak from where you are, that's fine, Prof. But it might be more convenient for you to come to the front. Mr. Downer, if you don't leave the chamber, you're going to mash up my meeting, you know. I know every MP... That's of great interest to MPs, particularly rural MPs. So just by way of background for those who may be listening on PBCJ, the reason we invited Port Authority was that during our hearings on the post-Melissa recovery, we received numerous complaints about delays and backlogs at the port from both private sector, commercial operators, as well as civil society groups, charitable organizations, and beneficiaries who were expecting various shipments in various sizes. And we were particularly concerned that this might delay the recovery of the economic recovery. So that's just the context in which you were invited. I would ask that maybe you commence by just giving an overview of the situation since Hurricane Melissa, and don't feel constrained, because I understand that the Iran war would also have had implications for normal shipping schedules, rates, etc. So if you can start with a 5 to 10 minute overview of where we find ourselves. I see you have a slide presentation. I trust that will guide you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, and thank you for giving us the opportunity to provide some information on where we are. The presentation that was prepared, Chairman, was based on a set of questions that we received, which indicated the nature of the concerns or the issues that we were to discuss. Some of them were by way of understanding better the regulatory work of the Port Authority, the kinds of employment on the ports, what has been happening, what is the rated capacity of the ports, what is the actual utilization now, and so on. I think you have zeroed in on one set of questions, which are predominant, which focus on the backlog. The situation as it relates to backlog, I want to provide one measure of clarity, sir, which is that we can look at congestion at the level of containers, and some persons import full container loads and export full container loads. The transshipment cargo also takes place in containers, and there are full container loads. And there are less than full container load, which are pallets of goods and barrels that are consolidated into single containers. These are usually deconsolidated at warehouses, some of which are on the terminals, some of which are off the terminals. And then those goods, after the fees have been paid and the customs has done their work, would be discharged to the consumers, the importers. We don't have a problem and did not have a problem with full container load cargo at any point, sir. The congestion that exists relates to less than full container loads. And the slide on the screen answers one of the questions which had been asked, which is what accounts for the backlog or congestion. And what it indicates there, the slides aren't numbered. What the slide indicates, Chairman, is that the issue in the warehouses was caused by a confluence of factors, one of which was the impact of the hurricane. And if you look at the images at the top of the screen, Chairman, those are some images of what happened at the terminal and the warehouses in Montego Bay. As you know, the Hurricane Melissa entered at Black River and left somewhere just around Falmouth. And so Montego Bay in particular was badly hit, and the warehouses generally, both on the port and outside of the port, were impacted negatively by this. And you see the roofs having been removed from those. All of those images are for the warehouses that are at the port, Chairman. So we had to move quickly on the port to restore the use of the warehouses. The one on the left is very badly damaged. It's beyond the roof material, rafters and so on were damaged badly. It's as if a bomb had dropped on that warehouse, and so we're going to have to replace that warehouse. But the warehouse used in deconsolidating cargo and inspecting it lost a lot of roof, and we had to replace that. But within a couple of weeks, that was open. The Seaboard warehouse, which is off the terminal, but contributes a lot to the clearance of those goods, also was damaged, and repairs had to be done. The second issue that impacted on it was a surge of relief cargo, and that coincided with the Christmas peak volumes. Jamaicans as a whole tend to ship barrels to their relatives or to themselves during the Christmas peak. They start, and that normally picks up. We see the increase in volume for this less than full container load cargo from October to January, essentially, Chairman. And as you recall, the hurricane took place on the 28th. So we got a surge of new cargo, of persons sending in relief cargo, separate from household cargo. And that was compounded by the fact that what is rational, some persons would have put their relief cargo on top of the normal household cargo. And I think aside from the increased volume, there was some confusion because the government announced that some goods would receive waivers as a result of the relief effort. And I think that maybe some people who were sending barrels felt that if some of those goods were in the barrel, that means the barrel would get exemption. And when customs said no, it created somewhat of a problem. What has resulted possibly from that, but for other reasons, I won't speculate as to why it has happened, but what we have experienced is a much slower pace at which customers have come to clear barrels this year, Chairman. And that was true both in Kingston, where and the large number of warehouses are, and in Montego Bay. They just did not turn up at the same pace.
What we were told was that many people who had expected duty-free or their barrels and so on to be treated as relief, and they didn't get it. They ended up just abandoning it, and therefore, I guess my question is, those would be permanently congesting unless there is some way of weeding out and disposing of these after a period of time. Is there? Can you describe that process to me? I imagine there must be a process.
Yes, Chairman. That is covered on the following slide. There are a number of measures taken to try to deal with that backlog, aside from extending the hours and expanding the available storage for those, Chair, because we don't know which ones are abandoned and which ones are not abandoned. So the effort to try to deal with the surge was, the first wave was to extend the opening hours to allow people to come, give them a longer space and to create more storage space for it. But there are also waivers of the customs duty and tax waivers. All fees, storage fees were waived, Chairman, and the Port Authority worked to provide discounts for the demurrage. I've indicated those because those were the primary package of activities which took place, for example, in Kingston and helped to bring down the backlog in Kingston. We also, Chair, because of the reason that you have just articulated, worked with the Jamaica Customs Agency to identify. The Jamaica Customs Agency operates what is called the Queen's Warehouse, which is a government warehouse. And goods are allowed, as you have just indicated. After 14 days, those goods can be removed to a government warehouse. The truth is they don't generally move them after 14 days. It's more like a couple of months before they will move them. But because of the problem, we got additional warehousing space. So the King's Warehouse, as it is referred to, was extended. There was a King's Warehouse that was established in the Garmex complex, and there was a smaller one in Montego Bay. Remember, I told you that the warehousing space in Montego Bay was limited because everything was damaged, a lot of damage. It worked in Kingston, and they never really had to fill that warehouse. In Montego Bay now, Chairman, there's a joint initiative by PAJ, the Jamaica Customs Agency, and the port operator there to identify those cargo exceeding the regulatory dwell time. Customers and JCA has put out a notice to indicate that that goods are going to be removed to the King's Warehouse. They are being packaged now in containers. They will be brought, because the King's Warehouse with any space is in Kingston. They are going to be brought into Kingston. Customers would still have the opportunity to clear the goods if they come to pick them up. But those would be disposed of after the allowable time has passed, Chairman, which is a few months. I think the issue is 4 months. The date is 4 months. So that process is now in train, Chairman. We're going to be removing those older goods that have not been moved, which then we assume are what you say, Chairman, that they are abandoned, which will then clear up space in the warehouse to then clear more barrels. And we will continue this process. And we expect that within a month to a month and a half, this will resolve the problem, Chairman.
It just seems to me, though, that to go to the additional expense of trucking goods which may have been abandoned from Montego Bay to Kingston might not just make more sense to whatever the period of time that you can, under law, you're allowed to just dispose of them. Would it be disposed of at some auction or something?
Yes, sure. But first of all, that's a customs. That decision relies with customs. And customs is likely to follow the law. As I said, the law allows 4 months. So if you count 4 months, November, December, January, February, it would be goods that were here before February that would fall into that category. Plus the 14 days that is allowed for free time, plus the time before they were actually stripped. So I think the process is being done according with the law, Chair, and we'll try to do it as aggressively, but to inform people, to give them as much chances as possible to come in and clear the goods.
Okay. So the container, the transshipment or the full containers, there's no backlog outside
there is no backlog that we know of. With
normal operations.
Normal operations. Yeah.
And if you were to estimate, well, you've suggested that in another month and a half or so, even for the stripped or what you call it, disaggregated cargo, that should return more or less to normal. But if we look at the last 6 months, at what level of backlog would we have been relative to normal? If you would normally clear, for example, just for lay persons, I don't know if there's a measure, but if the average clearance time would have been 30 days, say, for example, did it go to 90 days? Did it go to 60 days? Is there some measure that you can use to indicate how bad this backlog? Sometimes the perception is worse than it actually is when objectively measured.
So, Chairman, what we know is that there are containers, consolidated containers, which have come in February that have not yet been cleared, that not yet been stripped. That is a measure of sort of those goods would normally, under normal circumstances, have been cleared well before now, that are still there, and there would be customers who then have goods in those containers. And remember, by February, the normal Christmas peak would have gone and so on, right? So there are people who might have imported goods assuming that they would have gotten through, and we are concerned that we get to those containers as quickly as possible to allow them to remove their goods.
And those are still in the boxes, in the containers themselves?
They are goods from February, I think it is, the end of February, or sometime in February until now, which is the end of April.
So it must be incurring tremendous demurrage.
As I pointed out, we have waived waived all the statutory fees and so on, and the terminal has also waived fees.
Okay.
And we have tried to work with the shipping agent, the shipping lines, to explain the condition and to get as much
some concessions from
concession
them
on the demurrage.
All right, you please. So go ahead.
Yeah. So Chairman, the other piece of your question, I think, I understood it to be implied at the end of your question was it's taking some time this time around, and what I would say is that our objective is to ensure that the next Category 5 that we might get later this year or whenever it comes or whenever the next hurricane comes, that we would be managing the process somewhat differently. Arising out of this, I think we found the meetings with all of the stakeholders immediately after the hurricane to be useful. We think this time around, the next time around, maybe we will do it before, and agree on the processes that we will adopt in the event that we have some of the same challenges. I think it is also important to note, Chairman, that there's evidence, some of it anecdotal, but other evidence that says people were shipping some of those same containers in February. Maybe if the persons who were shipping knew that there was congestion at Montego Bay, they might have decided to ship their cargo through Kingston, and the shipping line can't make that decision. It's made by the customer. And so information about what is happening immediately after the hurricane in terms of capacity at the various locations would be an important issue, Chairman. We are looking at ways in which we can further automate some of the processes to ensure that we know where specific containers are and so on within the warehouses to allow for more effective management of the overall environment. So we are working on a program with the community in anticipation of this not being the last time we'll see anything like this, Chairman. Although the images that you saw there, we have never experienced it, certainly in the last 15 years.
Okay. Is this not your final slide? You have...
No, I wasn't sticking to the slides, Chairman.
Oh, okay.
But
if you would like to pause now and allow and take questions.
Yes, Chair. Because the others of it, as I say, ask about the capacities and
right, and we have that document.
And you have that here. So
okay.
if there are questions from it, I'll answer them.
All right, members. Dr. Dawes.
Afternoon, Professor.
Afternoon, sir.
Why did it take so long? Why was it that the ports pretty much were at a standstill where exporters could not even get space to send out their goods, and it was a complete gridlock? Someone must have realized that this was what was happening. The government had sent out an SOS. The diaspora responded. Different agencies responded. They did not know how to manage the process, so they were not taking into account the fees that were to be paid. And there was a pile-up. At some point in time, there would have been a tipping point. Why was nothing done? Why did it take so long for the relevant ministers and technocrats to get involved to start the negotiations for the waivers with the shipping lines? What went wrong?
Well, I would say, Dr. Dawes, that you asked a couple of things. One, the negotiations with the shipping lines. I think the first order of business, that process began in January and February, Dr. Dawes, because it was recognized already that the demurrage charges were growing, and there were some shipping lines which gave 100%, some 50%, some 25%, and so on at different rates. So that process began quite early. In terms of your specific question about exports, as I pointed out to the chairman, we're not aware that if there are full container loads that are being exported, for example, by manufacturers or distributors, there was no challenge with full container loads going either way, coming in or coming out. It was really with deconsolidated cargo. So there may be some persons who were distributing or exporting in consolidated cargoes, but again, I am not aware of that being an issue. So the problem really was predominantly, as we understand it, Dr. Dawes, consolidated cargo coming in containers that had to be stripped. And the limited warehouse space was what is the real problem. And as soon as the warehouses were close to being full, that's when everybody jumped into action for that, Dr. Dawes. The expectation, if we had the normal velocity or the normal rate at which people would turn up to take out cargo, and that is measured, we have data on that goes back several years. This one was compounded because you got a surge of additional shipments being made, but people just not turning up to pick up the relief cargo or to pick up their normal domestic cargo for Christmas and so on. It was just a fraction of what it would normally have been. That may be due to a number of factors, Dr. Dawes. People may have whatever disposable income they had decided to use it other than coming to pick up the cargo. But then you have to make a decision about, abandoning or trying to move away those people's cargo, and they may come in. So we had to follow and be lenient as it relates to the time that people would have to come and do this. And ads were put in the newspaper to try to, and in the media generally, to try to get them to accelerate the pace of coming in, but it just hasn't happened. So there are other issues beyond the efficiency on the port that determine when persons come to pick up their cargo that were a major part of the problem.
Okay. Was ODPEM one of those consignees where there was a delay in the collection of the barrels and containers?
ODPEM had specific provisions for them, and I wouldn't say that they were a major problem. I think ODPEM itself had some issues about storage of full container loads. I don't think ODPEM, I'm not aware that ODPEM's problem was with the less than full container load problems, Dr. Dawes. I think that there were some persons who were consigning goods, relief goods to ODPEM, who did not follow the procedures that were required, and therefore there were other reasons for delay of the goods that were sent by some donor agencies and individuals sending containers of goods and so on to ODPEM, which would have caused a bit of a delay. But I'm not aware that ODPEM contributed in a large way to the problem with the less than full container load cargo.
Okay, thank you.
In terms of building the resilience for the future, one of the things that, from experience, I guess from burial the year before, when people would call me, sincere persons of goodwill, saying, my church is doing a collection drive to send things down and so on. And I would try to explain that, the entire island hasn't been devastated, so we have on island capability to deliver relief supplies. The time it's going to take to do the community drive and aggregate and pack and ship in this busy time, it probably would be better to send funds to a charitable agency or so, which may have a more efficient. But of course, I guess we have a culture of sending barrels and so on. But I had the experience of seeing one of these containers, it was a 20-foot container, and with quite a variety of household goods, etc. But a big component of it was water, bottles of water, which, we had no shortage of it in Jamaica. And when I thought about the cost of shipping, because water is very heavy. The cost of filling a half of a container just with water, the value proposition was just not there. And I'm wondering if that could be part of the communication program, whether from the Port Authority, where it affects the ports and the cargo, or more generally from the government in terms of that type of situation, because to my mind it was predictable.
So, Chair, I think that more information is going to be helpful to people making decisions. As you have said, there are ingrained habits. People want to send clothes or use things and or even food stuff. And what we found interesting, Chair, but don't ask me for aggregated data. What we know is that some people put food as a priority in the relief, but people were able, through the World Food Kitchen and these others, to get cooked meals. And so food was not as pressing an issue for them. But if you put food in containers from October, in March, very often you're going to be buying goods that are closer to expiration dates. Those kinds of things happen, Sharon. I don't know that. I mean, we have to learn from this experience, because I can't say that this was as obvious a problem
before.
Mm-hmm.
Mr. Newell?
Thank you, Chairman. Thank you, Professor Shirley. To be frank, I can't imagine the level of work that your team would have had in the immediate aftermath of the hurricane. People with good intentions in the diaspora scrambling to try and ship things here. I just want an understanding of, because you spoke to full containers versus consolidated. When one of the companies that import barrels into Jamaica, for example, brings in a full container load, is that treated as a full container, or is it treated as consolidated?
That's a consolidated container, which would then go to the warehouse. So the way it would work, sir, is that container would, like all full container loads, be scanned, and then it would go to the warehouse where it would be deconsolidated. The pallets and barrels are taken out, and those are individually scanned again by Jamaica Customs Agency, and then placed on shelves to await the arrival of the customers to come in and to pay up their fees. Customs would probably, in the process of discharging it, also strip them again to look at what is in there and so on.
So again, from my understanding, the shipping company that brings in these items, they are not treated as the consignee. The individual purchasers or users, those are the ones who would be treated as the consignees.
So the freight forwarder was a person who would have that responsibility for the entire container.
Yes.
That person would be responsible to, when it comes, the moral charges and all those charges would be made against that person, and then they would allocate those to the individual persons who had packages in that container, sir. So yes, the freight forwarder would be responsible for the container, but the goods in there are for the individual persons to whom those barrels and packages were concerned.
In terms of the charges that are laid by the ports, what role, if any, does PAJ have in being able to waive or to influence the waiver of those charges?
So there's something called a storage fee, and that storage fee, MP Newell, is really intended to encourage people. There are, I think, 10 or 14 days of free storage that the container can spend while you are, the paperwork and so on is being done to get the container cleared. And then after that, the demurrage starts being charged. And also there's storage. So there's the demurrage, which is the fee for keeping the shipping line's container, and there is storage for keeping that container taking up space in the port after 14 days.
I wanted to
Those
distinguish
fees
between the
are
shipping line
PAJ's.
charges.
Sorry?
I wanted to distinguish between the shipping lines charges
Yes.
and the ones that
So the ones for the container staying longer than the allowed time on the port is charged, some of it by PAJ, and some by the port operator. And those charges, both of them were waived in full.
So both charges were waived in full for any specific
For storage,
period?
yes.
For any specific period?
For the up to this point, we are not charging for those containers.
Or you're still not charging?
Yes.
All right, so I'll communicate with you directly after, because I have a complaint from an entity, a group of persons in the diaspora, a registered non-government organization, which has racked up significant charges on 3 40-foot containers of relief items brought in. It is very encouraging to hear that there has been a waiver. I think there were some issues that caused these items, which arrived December 1st, to have been on the port for a significantly long time. And so I'll communicate further after.
Yes, sir. And as you can imagine already in your description of it, there are certain peculiarities to that case. So these things are dealt with on a case-by-case basis.
Understood.
To understand fully what is being done. But the idea is to try, we understand the impact of what has transpired. So that is, the government charges certainly are the ones that we have. The portion that we have waived all, and we have encouraged the terminals to waive those. I suspect the bigger part of those storage is the demurrage charges.
In terms of the push to transform Jamaica into a logistics hub,
yes, sir.
Were there any lessons learned from this experience that can assist, maybe 7, but were there any lessons learned from this experience that could guide or assist in that thrust?
Well, yeah, I think that I think that when we speak of Jamaica as a logistics hub, sir, we are talking about its growth as an importer and exporter, as a processor of goods that are going to be held for re-export. I think that the issue of how we make our warehouses more efficient at the level of individual pallets and how we manage those warehouses, I think there are lessons that we would very definitely have learned for that. For the larger objective, and in the paper we outline some of the investments that are being made and the objectives for the next 5 to 10 years, the question asked. Those are, let's say, at a different level, both in terms of the type of goods that we are working with at that point, sir. And the lessons may not be focused so much on those as on the warehouses where we have to manage these goods for the domestic cargo.
Understood.
Mr. Mitchell, your mic is on. Were you trying to add something to? Oh, okay. Go ahead, Mr. Clark.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just want to share some information because I listened to my colleague ask a question Professor Shirley would have asked, but as someone who has some amount of knowledge, I wouldn't say much. But I just want to say to my colleague, I would have loved to hear from him the entity, the NGO that says that they have racked up an amount of monies as it relates to the 3 containers. If they would have broken it down so that we understand, because rightly, the demurrage goes to the shipping line. How you're going to get that wave is something that we may not be able to do because the shipping line are really international. The storage, on the other hand, is where PAJ, the wharf, the warehouse handlers, because it can be private bonded or it can be public. And so we have to pay attention to that. So just giving us a lump sum tends to not shed enough light as to how to treat the situation. I do hear you, Mr. Professor, that it is a case-by-case, which I would encourage you to liaison, because we have the situation wherein Melissa came, there was a time span in which you're to do. People catch on midway, people catch on at the end, almost at the end, but they are seeking to get, even though the time would have elapsed and government would have said, okay, there's a cutoff time. You find that a shipment coming out of New York takes 3 to 4 weeks by way of ship to get here, as against a Miami shipment, which takes a couple days. And so we have to pay attention to that just the same. Also, the containers that come directly to a consignee gets easier clearance than the shipment that comes in a container for a number of persons. Reason being, the warehouse may not have enough space to strip what we call stripping a container, and so you're in line. So one shipping agent may have 10 containers, but according to how they come off the ship, how they number them, you'll find that you're in line and you'll get one ship today and none until another week. And so we have to be mindful of that. So I would have loved if the information that is passed here through you would have said, okay, they say we owe $10 in demurrage and another $10 in storage, as against what duty you would be paying.
Because
the question was asking the member to break it down.
I think my colleague was attempting to answer my question or to seek clarity to assist. I'm not sure. But as I have more than a passing knowledge of shipping and how shipping works. I don't think he's aware. The charges, I'm told, relate specifically to storage. But as I indicated, because I think we as Parliament also have a duty to inform. So it's not that I didn't know the how consolidation works, but based on some complaints I get, I understand that there are persons watching, viewing, who may not know how that works. I'm also very clear, which is why I said let's distinguish the charges that are for the shipping line from those that are for the port. Yes. So we have established that. That was already established. Now, in terms of the specifics of this matter, Professor Shirley, I will discuss further with you and your team.
Yes, sir.
Perhaps get some contact information so that you can adjudicate on whether they did something that was outside of that may have caused the charges, or whether the charges were slipped through and should have been waived and it can be moved along. But in terms of the specifics of the entity, I am choosing not to go into that in this discussion. But I still felt the discussion was useful in terms of educating the public on how this works. But I'm a customer of yours. I'm actually an importer. So I have a basic understanding.
Yes, sir. And if I could just say very briefly, Chairman, as it relates to storage, I just want to clarify one other thing. And I think MP Clark had pointed out that there are different types of warehouses. Some are off the port. The portion that the PAJ would have any control over would be the period while they are on the port. So if a container is cleared but goes to be deconsolidated off the port, that entity might charge its own storage in their warehouse. We have no control over that, Chairman.
Prof, yesterday we had the acting Commissioner of Customs, and I know the efficiency of our ports are not entirely within your regulation, because Customs is an important partner in the process. But the data that's now collected essentially real time under the ASICUDA system would be very useful for both public sector planners and private sector planners to inform, for example, demand, investment decisions, etc. we were told that all that data is sent to Statin, and oftentimes it takes a long time for Statin to publish the relevant data. Does the Port Authority, as regulator, do you collect data on the types of goods, for example, various, I think what they call it, tariff headings, the categories of goods, whether it be foods, various types of food stuff, building materials, whatever. Does the Port Authority collect any of this data, or that would be entirely with the customs?
I think customs has far more data than we have, but we also have something called the Port Community System that works along with ASICUDA, Chairman, and there is some information. We tend to focus more on the productivity and the movement of those and the clearance times and so on, but there is some information that is available, yes. And we also pass that on. What the information that we have, we generally don't publish the specifics of what is in the containers, but that information would be made available to Statin for their consolidation. And
so in terms of your information here, where you split it out between Kingston Freeport Terminal, for example, and the Freeport terminals versus the wharves, the transshipment business is what goes through the Freeport terminals, or is it a combination of transshipment and local boxes that will terminate locally?
All right. So in Kingston Freeport Terminal, about 90% of the cargo that is handled is transshipment.
Okay.
However, if you look at those numbers here, you will see that even that 10% is a very large number relative, because the volume it handles is much greater than Kingston Wharves, and it is much greater again than Montego Bay. So both of them handle
10% of Kingston Freeport Terminal would be about the total of Kingston Wharves.
Yes. So it still handles the largest amount of domestic cargo, Chairman, but a large part of what they do is transshipment. And Kingston Wharves is different in the sense that they don't only handle containers. Everything at KFTL is containerized, with very small exceptions. Whereas at Kingston Wharves, it's a mixed-use terminal. They do containers, they do cars, they do bulk, they do a variety of things.
Roll on, roll off.
Roll on, roll off, yes, sir. Steel, lumber, that don't come as containerized goods.
But just in terms of the potential for growth in the business, the transshipment is the primary area of potential growth.
Well, the truth,
I assume, I know talk of when the logistics hub gets going, but in the meantime, in the short term, the main potential area of growth is transshipment. I'm asking that as a question. Is that the main potential area of growth?
I think the objective is to have growth in the terminal, and these are different businesses, so to speak, Chairman. I think that shipping lines will go to ports that have the capacity to handle transshipment, but they are also driven by domestic cargo. And the truth is that if you look at the kinds of terminals against which we compete, like in Colombia and Dominican Republic, one of the advantages that they have is that they have a large domestic cargo, domestic load compared to Jamaica. So the economics of that would favor those because they have this large amount of cargo that is going to be left there, against which they will get all the charges and the mortgage and so on, which they're not going to get on the transshipment. So,
and that's just a challenge of size of our country and economy.
Yes, sir. And the more that we produce, the more that we manufacture, the more that we transform goods in our country and re-export them.
That will generate
It
additional
generates
interest.
value of an economic nature. It also helps the ports, it helps the logistic companies. So that is why there's a focus on that other component as well, Chairman.
I am aware of a manufacturer in Barbados, and they're plagued, they say, because of that very reason, that container ships often bypass. They're scheduled, but because there's some congestion in the port, there's some cruise ships or something that would force them to stand off for a few hours. And when they look at the amount of boxes they have, they just bypass and continue to Trinidad or wherever. So I know it's a challenge for smaller, it's a big challenge for smaller islands, but I guess the mass gives you some advantage in terms of your domestic market, even in the transshipment areas, is your point.
And bear in mind that you're now talking about a different aspect of it, Chairman, which is that most of the ports in the region would be import-export terminals, right? They are mixed use in that, as you have pointed out, most of them do cruise as well. So they would look a lot like the port that we have in Montego Bay. Montego Bay does cruise, it does cargo, it does containers, it does everything. Whereas the two in Kingston
are much more
specialized. And so the statistics that you see for those ports are very different. What the ports that we compete against, as I've told you, are, they would look a lot more like the ones in Kingston, sir.
All right. Any final questions for Prof and team? If not, it's just for me to thank you, Prof, and your team. Thank you, PS, and all those who have attended. I think it's been a very informative day, certainly for me, and I believe it would help our public generally to understand some of the nuances of and the reasons why the delays would have occurred, etc. So maybe you get less cussing when as people better understand the inputs and the causes for the delays. So thank you very much for taking the time to come and share with the committee and through this committee to the public. Members, we are, and you're free to either remain, but we're just wrapping up now, or you can leave at any time. Members, we have completed item 7. Any other business? If not, it's just to set the date for the next meeting. Sorry? First of all, let me find out what dates are available. And the second thing is, what's the next areas that we want to examine. So while we check out available dates, under AOB, we had said earlier, and just for the benefit of those who may not have been here at the start, we had determined that it wasn't necessary to send 2 reports to Parliament, the Hurricane Melissa report and the annual report, as the annual report largely 80% or 90% of it was about the same Hurricane Melissa recovery hearings that we'd had. So we had determined we would just send the annual report, which covered quite adequately all of that. Any other suggestions for the next topics to enter? Sorry? Well, the PAC is already examining that. I wouldn't enter upon that reference. So you want to have another round of examining the recovery at this phase? Okay. Sorry. Use your mic, please. Yeah.
I would love a conversation with HAJ, the Housing Agency of Jamaica, especially as it relates to settlements and the state of infrastructure and what their plans are and what is being done to upgrade some of the infrastructure.
So if it was the Housing Agency of Jamaica, that's under your ministry, PS? So we're agreed? If we're...
Put it.
Sorry?
Put it to the team. Put it to the members.
Member Newell has suggested that we ask the Housing Agency of Jamaica. Any other suggestions? If not, I put and roofs program.
Yes, Chairman. I think it is time that we ask the roofs program, the shelter program, and the solidarity program. All of these programs that
they're all under the Ministry of
Labor and Social Security.
And Social Security. Okay. Yes. All right. So the suggestions are for the next meeting, which we haven't set the date yet, we'll invite the Ministry of Labor and Social Security and their related relief programs to give us an update, and the Housing Agency of Jamaica. All in favor? Aye. Okay. Those against? The ayes have it. And in terms of the date of next meeting, what's the available date? The 20th looks to be a convenient available date, as in 3 weeks' time. So can we agree that we'll meet 10 a.m. on Wednesday, the 20th of May? And that gives enough time to those agencies to prepare. The Ministry of Labor relief efforts to roofs, solidarity, and whatever the Ministry of Labor post-hurricane relief programs. Yes, Mr.
I want to tender my apologies from now. The 20th of May, I have the opening of, where's the camera? The opening of the Robbins Bay Road in the morning, and my sectoral debate presentation in the afternoon, and the Minister of Tourism has confirmed that he's coming. It's being driven by his office, so I will be unavoidably absent.
So, since you are the member who had suggested the HAJ, I would like to accommodate you. What's the name? All right. Is in as a courtesy to Member Newell, can we do the 27th then? The 27th of May instead? We're all agreed? The 27th of May, 10 a.m. Thank you very much. There being no other business, can I have a motion for the termination of the meeting? Member Hines and Mr. Clark, thank you for seconding the motion for terminating the meeting. Those in favor? Aye. Meeting is over. Thank you. Thank you very much.
It's Wednesday, April 29th. In the headlines, chaos in Parliament as opposition member of Parliament is suspended over May's protest. Parliament passes National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Bill after marathon debate. In business news, we have your usual market updates. Regionally, regional leaders pushing against gun trafficking with workshop. And in sports, FIFA boosts World Cup payouts to $871 million amid rising costs concerns. This is the news on PBC Jamaica. I'm Simone Absalom Gale. Chaos briefly halted proceedings in Jamaica's Parliament Tuesday night after Member of Parliament for St. Andrew Southwestern Angela Brown Burke was suspended following an incident involving the ceremonial mace during a debate on the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Bill, the NARA Bill. The confrontation unfolded during a sitting of the Committee of the Whole House, forcing a temporary suspension.
Members, I name Angela Brown Burke and ask that she be removed from the chamber. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Member outside.
House Speaker Juliet Holness ruled that the MP's actions breached parliamentary rules, warning that the mace, Parliament's symbol of authority, must never be handled in protest.
Member, at no time can you grab the mace in Parliament. Not even in jest, member. And not in protest either, Member Burchell.
Despite repeated instructions, the opposition MP resisted removal and attempted to address the House before being escorted out.
Those in favor? Madam Speaker. Those against? Those against? No, that's not allowed.
The incident overshadowed debate on the NARA bill, which aims to establish a national body to coordinate disaster recovery and resilience efforts. Prime Minister Dr. Andrew Holness later called for calm, urging members to preserve the dignity of the House. The sitting was suspended for 5 minutes before lawmakers resumed deliberations. The National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Act was passed in the House of Representatives on Wednesday morning, clearing the way for the government to accelerate rebuilding efforts following Hurricane Melissa. Following a marathon debate which ended minutes before 2 a.m., the bill was approved with 20 amendments after more than 8 hours of often heated debate which began Tuesday afternoon and spilled into the night. Opposition leader Mark Golding and his members called multiple division votes, all defeated by the government's majority, but secured several amendments, arguing the bill needed stronger transparency and accountability provisions.
I'm suggesting that the words in the new provision, which is persons affected or likely to be affected by the implementation of a project, could be added as a catch-all to the new provision. So it could say, discuss projects, programs and plans with representatives of non-governmental organizations and vulnerable groups, including women, persons, the elderly and children, youth, and any other persons affected or likely to be affected. Including but not limited to. That's what I was suggesting. But you're right.
But the opposition leader's point carries.
Government MP Marlene Malahoo Fort also raised concerns during the clause-by-clause review.
Clause is now being amended to include the private sector projects, and the register speaks to the name and description of the project. With the inclusion of the private sector side, should it include the developer or those who are behind the private sector project in that register?
The clause indicates that other particulars can be prescribed. Right, I think that is clear. So these are in relation to national strategic projects. I wouldn't specifically put in the legislation that the developer must be included, but the name, the description, and clearly other particulars can be prescribed. That's my view on it.
The government insists that the law is necessary for a swift and coordinated response to the estimated $12.2 billion in damage caused by the hurricane, maintaining that sufficient safeguards are in place. Closing the debate, the Prime Minister, Dr. Andrew Holness, sought to ease concerns over oversight while urging cooperation in the national interest. The NARA will be tasked with leading major reconstruction and developing projects, including infrastructure expansion and fast-tracking key investments under the government's Fast Jamaica initiative. Jamaican students could soon be earning and gaining real work experience before they even graduate. The Heart NSTA Trust has launched its new tertiary Learn, Earn and Prosper program, aimed at helping students move seamlessly from the classroom into the workforce through part-time employment while studying.
What if you could start earning and building your career before you even graduate? That future is closer than you think. The Heart NSTA Trust is changing how young people move from school to work with its new initiative, the Tertiary Learn, Earn and Prosper LEAP program, and it could be a game changer. For years, students have faced the same issue. Graduate, then hope to find a job. LEAP is here to disrupt that cycle. Through this pilot initiative, students enrolled in accredited tertiary institutions will get the chance to work part-time in real jobs while still studying. LEAP aims to connect you with opportunities that align with your career goals, helping you transition seamlessly from lecture hall to professional life. But the opportunities don't stop there. As Jamaica ramps up major infrastructure and development projects, the government is also investing in young people who want to build businesses, not just careers. Enter the Contractor Incubator Program. This initiative will support graduates of the Heart NSTA Trust and the University of Technology, equipping them with advanced technical training, business development support, and access to concessional financing through the Development Bank of Jamaica.
The National Reconstruction Program under NARA will require thousands of skilled tradespeople, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, masons, roofers, and the capacity to train them at scale and at speed. The Heart Trust NSTA will train construction-related tradespersons who can assist in the Building and Resilience Initiative, as well as propelling the expansion of various sectors.
Even better, participants won't just train.
The intent is to have Jamaicans gain experience on high-value public infrastructure projects and transition faster into sustainable employment and enterprise.
In a major move to expand access, the government is also removing one of the biggest obstacles to skills training: cost.
Our mission to expand access to opportunity through skills training is not yet complete. I shall now complete that mission. In the coming financial year, tuitions for all Heart NSTA Trust programs up to level 5, note that this is a bachelor's degree, will be abolished for Jamaicans in the most challenging circumstances.
The message is clear. Jamaica is investing in its youth, not just to find jobs, but to create opportunities, build industries, and shape the future. So the question is, are you ready to learn, earn, and prosper?
In the business report, Revenues at Jamaica's two main international airports declined during the first quarter of the year, largely due to the impact of Hurricane Melissa. The airports Sangster International and Norman Manley International recorded a combined drop of just over $8 million. Earnings from flight operations fell by more than $6 million, while revenue from food concessions also declined. The downturn has been linked to reduced passenger traffic, with Sangster International Airport recording a sharp fall in arrivals, while Norman Manley International Airport also saw a slight decline. Officials note to RJR News that these figures do not yet reflect the potential impact of current tensions in the Middle East, which began late February. The drop in passenger numbers highlights continued challenges facing the tourism and aviation sectors in the wake of recent disruptions. The Statistical Institute of Jamaica says it's currently conducting an island-wide counting and recording of basic information on all residential dwellings. Statin added that the current exercise is important because after the completion of a population census, new houses are built, people relocate, and the structure of communities change. The agency also says the capturing of these changes is important to the updating of its database, while adding that it helps to build a strong, accurate foundation for planning and delivering the public goods and services that the population will need in the future.
Let's hear what's happening in the stock exchange and forex market from Denise Williams.
For the trading period of April 28, 2026, the most actively traded securities were Trans-Jamaica Highway Limited with 4,308,516 units, representing 26.51% of market sales activities. Kentire Holdings Jamaica Limited with 2,873,737 units, representing 17.68% of market sales activities. Woodcats International Limited with 891,932 units, representing 5.49% of market sales activities. Investor activity remained concentrated in transportation and distribution plays, signaling continued interest in dividend-producing and strategic assets. Turning to the foreign exchange market based on Bank of Jamaica data for April 28, 2026, forex traders recorded significant activity with strong demand across major currencies. The US dollar had trading margins reflecting steady liquidity, with the US selling at $155.79 and buying at $157.97. The Canadian dollar had moderate gains supported by $1.24 transaction spreads. The Canadian dollar sold for $115.37 and was bought for $114.13. For the British pound, continued volatility offers short-term trading opportunities of $5.46 in profits for the banks. The British pound sold for $212.99 and was bought for $207.53. These movements underscore the importance of cash flow timing and currency awareness for businesses managing import costs, debt servicing, or overseas exposure. For our credit report tip of the day, retirement doesn't mean disengaging from your finances. If you're 70 or older, your credit report is no longer about building. It's about protecting, preserving, and staying flexible. So here's how to actively manage it. Well, first of all, you can keep access to cash when you need it. Don't assume you'll never need credit again just because you're in your 70s. Emergencies happen, medical costs, home repairs, and maybe even supporting family. So here's an action tip for you. Keep at least one active credit card or line of credit open. Use it lightly and pay it off consistently. This keeps your options alive without creating risk. And I also want you to actively guard against fraud. This is where the credit report matters the most at this stage of life. In your 70s, you're a prime target for identity theft. The action would be set up credit monitoring or alerts, check for unfamiliar accounts or activity, and freeze your credit if you're not applying for anything. So we want you to simplify, not abandon, because complex financial structure create risk. So we want you to reduce the number of accounts you manage, avoid co-signing loans, and keep balances low and predictable. The bottom line is at 70, your credit report is no longer a growth tool. It's a defensive asset. And that's today's business report. I'm Janice Williams, bringing clarity to capital markets and strategy. Until next time, stay informed, stay intentional, and keep building forward. See you soon.
In regional news, regional and international partners are stepping up efforts to tackle the growing threat of illegal firearms across the Caribbean. Law enforcement officials are meeting this week in Trinidad and Tobago to strengthen cooperation, share intelligence, and examine new strategies to counter gun trafficking in the region.
The two-day workshop in Port of Spain brings together representatives from 11 countries and U.S. agencies to boost intelligence sharing and counter regional trafficking networks. Commissioner of Police Alistair Guevara said the scale of the problem remains a major concern for Trinidad and Tobago and the wider Caribbean.
Gun violence, not only in Trinidad but in the Caribbean, is a serious problem. We have actually statistical data for the past 10 years shows about 8,500 firearms being recovered from the streets of Trinidad and Tobago, and you could actually tell that every single year we recover over 600 firearms. Last year it was 676.
Commissioner Guevara said the scale of the problem highlights the need for coordinated action as criminal networks continue to evolve and exploit regional weaknesses. Director of the International Law Enforcement Academy in San Salvador, Dimas Jaén, added that no single country can tackle the issue alone.
Across the Caribbean, small arms trafficking, proliferation of small arms continues to be a major issue for our international partners. It's one that is certainly not going away, I think, and it's an issue that it can't be addressed locally. It's an issue that needs to be addressed and can only be addressed really through building the types of coalitions that the ILEA program builds amongst our international partners.
The workshop also examines emerging trafficking trends, investigative tools, and shared intelligence systems as authorities work to strengthen a coordinated regional response.
Digital services like streaming platforms, apps, and cloud storage could soon be taxed in Grenada. Government has introduced legislation to expand the VAT system to include online subscriptions as part of efforts to modernize tax collection and strengthen fiscal sustainability. The Value-Added Tax Amendment Bill 2026 was tabled in Parliament by Leader of Government Business, Philip Telesford.
The Value-Added Tax Amendment Bill changes the legislation to include digital services within Grenada's tax framework. The bill introduces legal definitions for digital services and electronic marketplaces, establishes how and when services are used in Grenada, and sets out compliance rules for overseas providers. It also requires non-resident suppliers to register for VAT under a simplified system, while placing responsibility on certain online platforms to account for tax where they facilitate and control transactions. A reverse charge mechanism is also introduced, requiring registered businesses in Grenada to account for VAT when purchasing digital services from abroad. Leader of Government Business Philip Telesford, who introduced the bill, said it is aimed at strengthening fiscal sustainability and modernizing the tax system.
The bill introduces a comprehensive regime to ensure that the digital services supplied to consumers in Grenada, including those supplied by non-residents and through electronic marketplaces, are subject to VAT.
Opposition member Kate Lewis-Peters and Opposition leader Emlyn Pear, while not opposing the legislation, raised concerns about the potential impact on consumers and local content creators.
I'm thinking about the small businesses, the young content creators. Now, it means that they would be charging additional for these services.
We understand that this is monies that the government wants to collect to add to the government coffers. I would suggest maybe we need to look more at how do we manage what we have.
Prime Minister Dickon Mitchell supported the bill, warning that failure to properly capture VAT on digital services would pose a risk to fiscal stability.
This is not merely about the question of whether or not a 15% VAT on digital services should or should not apply, because at the end, the individual end user who consumes something may or may not have to pay that rate. It is about the fact that the digital economy is an economy. And like all economies, it must be subject to state regulation, including taxation.
The bill has now been approved in the lower house. Eugenia Peters, GBN News.
The government of Antigua and Barbuda says major investments continue to flow into the country, despite earlier concerns from the International Monetary Fund about declining revenues. Prime Minister Gaston Brown reports more than $2 billion in projects now in the pipeline, including new luxury resorts and hotel developments expected to roll out over the next few years.
We are seeing Antigua and Barbuda continue to hold steady. Our revenues continue to increase and investments are still flowing. We have over $2 billion in investments in the pipe, which will take place in the ensuing months and years. So, for example, we have about $200 million to invest in expansion of V5 Islands. That will start by third quarter of this year. There's a Marriott hotel being built to be completed by about April of next year. The Merby luxury hotel property will start construction shortly as well.
In sports, FIFA has significantly increased financial payouts for this year's World Cup to ease concerns over rising participation costs. Total distributions will now reach $871 million, up from the previously announced $727 million. The decision follows complaints from member associations about high expenses, including travel, taxes, and operations for the tournament, which will be hosted in the United States, Canada, and Mexico. Under the revised structure, each of the 48 qualified teams will receive $2.5 million in preparation funding, up from $1.5 million. While qualification payments increase from $9 million to $10 million. Additional support will also be provided for team delegation costs and ticket allocations. In cricket news, Guyana is set to host 5 matches involving 2023 champions Guyana Amazon Warriors in the Republic Bank Caribbean Premier League between September 4 and September 11. CPL on Tuesday unveiled the fixtures for the 2026 tournament, set to feature 39 matches from August 7 to September 20.
The Warriors will open their home leg at the National Stadium Providence with a clash against Jamaica Kingsmen on September 4th from 19 hours, followed by a showdown with St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots on September 6th from 10 hours. On September 8th, Warriors will come up against Antigua and Barbuda Falcons from 19 hours, while on September 9th, they face St. Lucia Kings from 19 hours. The final game in Guyana is a mega clash between Warriors and reigning champions Trinbago Knight Riders on September 11th from 19 hours. For the first time, the competition will feature 7 teams, with Jamaica Kingsmen joining the fray this season alongside Antigua and Barbuda Falcons, Barbados Royals, Guyana Amazon Warriors, St. Lucia Kings, St. Kitts and Nevis Patriots, and Trinbago Knight Riders. The 2026 edition will also mark several historic milestones for the tournament. St. Vincent and the Grenadines will host CPL matches for the first time, with the opening fixtures scheduled for the scenic Arnesville Stadium, bringing the excitement of CPL cricket to a new audience. At the other end of the tournament, Barbados will host the CPL finals for the first time, setting the stage for a landmark conclusion to the competition. Pete Russell, the Chief Executive Officer of the Republic Bank Caribbean Premier League, said, and I quote, "With an expanded tournament in 2026, we are delighted to be bringing CPL cricket to St. Vincent and the Grenadines for the first time. We are equally excited about hosting Finals Week in Barbados, where we have ambitious plans to deliver the biggest and most memorable finale in the tournament's 14-year history. Each year, our goal is to raise the bar, and I am more confident than ever that CPL 2026 will be our best season yet." End quote.
Trinidad and Tobago's national sprinter, Shaniqua Bascom, says the training in Jamaica has benefited her development tremendously on and off the track, and she's encouraging other local athletes to do the same. Bascom, who recently triumphed in the girls' 200-meter dash at Velocity Fest 19, has been based in Jamaica for over a year with track and field club Optimum, as she eyes qualification for the 2028 Olympic Games.
22-year-old Trinidad and Tobago sprinter Shaniqua Bascom is one of this country's top-performing athletes in the discipline. In 2025, the Marval native struck gold in the Pan American Junior Games Women's 100-meter final. Following that, she recently made a huge impression in Jamaica, winning the 200-meter final at Velocity Fest 19, while clocking a new personal best in that event and the 100-meter. In her ultimate journey of qualification for the 2028 Olympic Games, Bascom has made the transition to Jamaica for over a year now, where she trains with track and field club Optimum, a decision that she doesn't regret.
Training in Jamaica, it make a big difference. It have me more calm, more how to say, more mature, because I'm living by myself out there, and it's scary. But it's just something different that I never experienced before. And the training environment it's good, very good. I can't complain about it.
When asked about the recent trend of more local track and field athletes applying their trade in Jamaica, Bascom stated that it's something she would recommend, but added that it's an expensive investment.
You're going to experience something different. You're going to the land of where sprinting is, where all the fast athletes are, because if you realize Jamaica and the US, they are the places where the top athletes are. So I would definitely recommend somebody going to Jamaica to train.
The sprinter went on to state her plans going forward.
My plan, my goal, and my plan right now is to break the national record in the 200, and everything else is my coach to deal with.
Adrian Lazar, TTT Sport.
And that's the news on PBCJ. Remember, we are the People's Station.
Jamaica Eye can help you protect our citizens.
Jamaica Eye will play a part in increasing your public safety.
Jamaica Eye is part of an island-wide network of camera surveillance systems designed to increase the safety of you, our citizens. If you have a camera system outside your home or office facing a public space, log on to jamaicai.gov.jm today. Jamaica Eye, we're all connected. The Ministry of National Security, creating a safer and prosperous Jamaica.
There's something in come back. Back to sender. God, I thank you so much.
Miracles await and miracles abound. Tune in every Sunday at 7 a.m. for your share of the Miracle Revival Hour with Reverend Dr. Blair. Come for the word, stay for the worship, right here on PBCJ.
Miracle worker, work one for me.
Are you an entrepreneur producing an excellent Jamaican product or service? Did you know you can earn hard currency and more significant returns by exporting? Contact the Ministry of Industry, Investment and Commerce to help propel your business along the export lane.
Everything you can produce, the Jamaicans overseas want it. We're not going to get rich by just bringing down the debt. We're going to get rich by exporting a lot more. So grow exports, create job opportunities, drive economic growth through exports to make Jamaica a richer and much more prosperous country.
Jamaica's first broadcast museum is completely online. The PBCJ Audio Visual Library AVL website houses a curated collection of exhibits ranging from our island nation's greatest tragedies to our proudest triumphs. Explore rare video footage, the evolution of archival equipment, and deep dives into the lives and times of key figures and institutions in Jamaica's storied history. It's a treasure trove for the curious and nostalgic alike. Soon, you will be able to listen to the exhibits as we continue our commitment to enhancing accessibility features. No walls, no boundaries, only rich Jamaican history curated specifically for you, accessible anytime, anywhere, any place. Scan the QR code or visit library@pbcj.com to experience history at your fingertips.
Every school is free of unhealthy, ultra-processed products. You know, those high in salt, fats, and sugar. If only that weren't a dream. The reality is that many children have an unhealthy diet at school, and 23% of them are overweight or obese. This can lead to hypertension, heart disease, and type 2 diabetes. Let's protect our children's right to health with a policy for schools that prevents unhealthy food marketing and ensures access to nutritious foods. The time is now. Let's implement the National School Nutrition Policy. A message from the Heart Foundation of Jamaica and partners.
Rebuilding continues quietly and deliberately in communities, in businesses, and in the lives of people still finding their footing.
We soon come back.
Okay guys, I used to do track and field, but I'm not in the football business anymore. I'm Sammy back.
Yo, this Appropriation news, me just got a call, season has start.
Okay.
Hello? Where say? League start? Or soon come?
Got it.
Hello? Alright.
Yo, you can't go to the ball. We are going to the ball.
Oh, sorry.